sizga bo'lgan qulay tillarda tadbir muhokamasini eshitishingiz mumkin. Bugungi tadbirimiz ta'limni, kasbiy ta'limni sifatini ta'minlashga bag'ishlangan va bu jarayonda xalqaro tajribalarni o'rgangan holda mana UNESCO tashkiloti demak Yevropa Ittifoqi tomonidan moliyalashtirilayotgan O'zbekistonning qishloq joylarida ishga joylashish va ko'nikmalarni rivojlantirish loyihasi doirasida ushbu tadbirni tashkil qilyapmiz. Albatta bu tadbirni tashkil qilishga ko'maklashgan moliyaviy ko'magini bergan Yevropa Ittifoqiga o'z minnatdorchiligimizni bildiramiz va fursatdan foydalanib bugun aynan Yevropa Ittifoqi kuni ekan, Yevropa Ittifoqi vakillarimizni, hamkorlarimizni Yevropa Ittifoqi kuni bilan chin qalbimizdan tabriklaymiz. Aytib o'tganimizdek, dasturimiz bo'yicha bir qancha nutqlarimiz bor. YuNESKO tomonidan ikkita xalqaro ekspertlarimizni, mavzuga tegishli bo'lgan ekspertlarimizni taklif qilganmiz va kun davomida mana shu ekspertlar orqali biz ta'lim sifatini ta'minlashda xalqaro tajribalar, asosan Yevropa Ittifoqida kasbiy ta'lim sifatini ta'minlash bo'yicha tajribalarni o'rganishga harakat qilamiz. Equavet deb nomlangan tajribani va albatta dasturlar bizlarga yetkazilgan, dasturlarda keltirilgan savollarga diqqatlaringizni jalb qilmoqchiman, chunki kun davomida bo'ladigan muhokamalarimizda beriladigan savollarimiz ham dasturlarimizda yozilgan. Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari, ijozatlaringiz bilan birinchi ilk kirish so'zini professional ta'lim tizimini rivojlantirish departamenti boshlig'i, Oliy ta'lim, fan va innovatsiyalar vazirligi vakili Sadoqat Gafarovnaga bersak, Sadoqat opa, marhamat, so'z sizga.
Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli xonimlar va janoblar, konferensiya ishtirokchilari. Avvalambor professional ta'limni rivojlantirish bo'yicha biz bilan yaqin hamkorlikni yo'lga qo'yib kelayotgan YuNESKOning O'zbekistondagi vakili xonim Sara Nashabiga va uning jamoalariga o'z minnatdorchiligimizni bildiramiz. Davlatimiz rahbarining tashabbusi bilan professional ta'lim tizimi tubdan isloh qilinib, xalqaro standartlar talablarga mos keladigan o'rta bo'g'in mutaxassislarni tayyorlashning yangi uzluksiz professional ta'lim tizimiga asos solindi va bu tizimni yanada rivojlantirish borasida bir qator ishlar olib borilmoqda. Xususan, ta'lim sifatini ta'minlash, ichki va tashqi mehnat bozori talablariga mos holda o'rta bo'g'in mutaxassislarni tayyorlash va bu borada Yevropa kasbiy ta'lim standartlarini joriy etish borasida o'z oldimizga qator ustuvor vazifalarni belgilab olganmiz. Aynan yangi tashkil etilgan professional ta'lim tizimiga bo'lgan alohida e'tibor natijasida bugungi kunda respublikamizda Yevropa Ittifoqi, YuNESKO, Osiyo taraqqiyot banki, Germaniyaning xalqaro hamkorlik jamiyati, Shvetsariya elchixonasi, HLTS tashkiloti, Germaniyaning KF banki, Britaniya kengashi kabi ko'plab xorijiy hamkorlar bilan o'zaro manfaatli loyihalar amalga oshirilmoqda. Vaziyatdan foydalanib, barcha hamkorlarimizga va bugungi konferensiyada ishtirok etayotgan vazirlik, idoralar, xalqaro tashkilotlar loyihalari vakillariga Germaniya, Shvetsariya, Fransiya, Avstraliya va boshqa davlatlarning ta'lim sifati sohasida ekspertlarga o'z minnatdorchiligimizni bildirmoqchimiz. Shu o'rinda aytish joizki, 2023-yil insonga e'tibor va sifatli ta'lim yilida amalga oshirishga oid davlat dasturida Yevropa kasbiy ta'lim va kasbiy o'qitish sifatini ta'minlash tizimi talablariga to'liq javob beradigan namunaviy professional ta'lim muassasalari faoliyatini yo'lga qo'yish vazifasi belgilanganligi ham bejiz emas. Shuningdek, Yevropada 2023-yil Yevropa ko'nikmalar yili deb e'lon qilinganligi ayni vaqtda ko'plab mamlakatlarda professional ta'lim va tayyorlov sohasida alohida e'tibor berilayotganligi, bu esa o'z navbatida mazkur soha bo'yicha yanada kengroq xalqaro aloqalar o'rnatilishidan dalolat beradi. Umuman olganda, O'zbekistonda ta'lim, fan va innovatsiyalar sohasida ish yurituvchi yangi markazlashtirilgan tizim yaratildi. Mazkur tizim barqaror rivojlantirish, mehnat bozori talablariga muvofiq malakali kadrlar tayyorlash, pedagog kadrlarning kasbiy salohiyatini oshirish, ta'lim sifatini ta'minlash kabi muhim vazifalarni amalga oshirishda xalqaro tashkilotlar tajribasi hamda yo'lga qo'yilgan rejalashtirilgan loyihalarning o'rni beqiyosdir. Ushbu konferensiyaning asosiy maqsadi professional ta'lim tizimida sifatni ta'minlash bo'yicha ekovet tizimini joriy etishda xalqaro tajribalar asosida amalga oshirilishi kerak bo'lgan ishlar ketma-ketligini belgilab olish hamda ushbu tizimning mazmun mohiyatini chuqur tushunib olish hisoblanadi. Bu borada Oliy ta'lim, fan va innovatsiyalar vazirligi, Shvetsariya hukumati va Helvetas Swiss Intercorporation'ning O'zbekistondagi filiali bilan hamkorlikda professional ta'lim tizimi sifatini ta'minlash bo'yicha tadqiqotlar olib borildi va tavsiyalar ishlab chiqildi. Bugungi tashkil etilgan konferensiya davomida professional ta'lim tizimida sifatni ta'minlash bo'yicha ekovet tizimini joriy etish bo'yicha har bir tashkilotchilar tomonidan bildirilgan fikr, mulohaza va takliflar biz uchun juda ham qadrli. Konferensiya bir necha xalqaro modellarni joriy etish orqali taklif etilayotgan sifatni kafolash siyosatiga alohida e'tibor qaratgan holda va barcha manfaatdor tomonlar o'rtasida xalqaro amaliyotga asoslangan sifatni ta'minlash siyosatining roli haqida umumiy tushunchaga erishishga qaratilgan. Shu bilan birga, professional ta'lim tizimini rivojlantirish vazirligimizning oldida turgan asosiy vazifalardan biri ekan, YuNESKO va vazirlik hamkorligida ishlab chiqilayotgan professional ta'lim tizimini 2030-yilgacha rivojlantirish strategiyasi loyihasi muhokamasi ham o'tkaziladi. Ushbu strategiya loyihasi bo'yicha ham ishtirokchilar fikr almashib, takliflar bildiradi degan umiddaman. Strategiyaga muvofiq 2030-yilgacha barcha professional ta'lim muassasalarida Yevropa ta'lim standartlari asosida o'rta bo'g'in kadrlar tayyorlash amaliyoti yo'lga qo'yiladi. Shu o'rinda Oliy ta'lim, fan va innovatsiyalar vazirligi professional ta'lim tizimini rivojlantirish borasidagi xorijiy hamkorlarning barcha loyihalarini qo'llab-quvvatlaydi hamda ularni samarali faoliyat ko'rsatishda doim yordam ko'rsatishga tayyor ekanligini ma'lum qiladi. Professional ta'lim tizimini rivojlantirishda hamkorlik qilayotgan hamkorlarimizga, xorijiy hamkorlarimizga o'z minnatdorchiligimizni bildirib o'tamiz. Bugungi tashkil etilgan tadbirda professional ta'lim tizimini rivojlantirish bo'yicha ishlab chiqilayotgan me'yoriy hujjatlar, loyihalar taqdimotlarini ko'ramiz, fikr almashamiz va kelgusidagi rejalarimizni belgilab olamiz. Shundan kelib chiqqan holda konferensiya ishiga muvaffaqiyat tilayman va barchani faol ishtirok etishga chaqiraman. Rahmat.
Kattakon rahmat Sadoqat G'affarovna. Albatta bu xorijiy tashkilotlar tomonidan amalga oshirilayotgan loyihalarni muvaffaqiyati ham aynan vazirlik tomonidan, siz tomoningizdan bo'layotgan mana shu qo'llab-quvvatlash va bizlarning ishimizni joriy etish, kechiktirmasdan ta'lim tizimiga joriy etish bu juda ham ahamiyatli. Bu uchun bizni minnatdorchiligimizni qabul qilasiz. Kattakon rahmat. Albatta bir qator loyihalarimiz ham shu kasbiy ta'limda, professional ta'limda sifatni ta'minlash bo'yicha o'z ishlarini olib borishyapti. Mana Shvetsariya loyihasi to'g'risida gapirdingiz, ular tadqiqotlarga asoslangan o'zlarini ishlarini amalga oshiryaptilar. Albatta sifatni ta'minlash bu jamoaviy ish, bu hammamizni vazifamiz. Har bitta tashkilot, har bitta aytaylik hamkorlik, taraqqiyot bo'yicha hamkorlar, developing partners deymiz. Bularni hammamizni bir xildagi mas'uliyatimiz bor, ishtirokimiz bor, hammamizning o'rnimiz bor. Albatta ularni ham fikrlarini eshitishimiz biz uchun qiziq bo'lardi. Kattakon rahmat. Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari, keyingi nutqlarimiz ingliz tilida bo'ladi. Agar sizga qulay bo'ladigan bo'lsa, quloqchinlarni taqib, kerakli kanallarga tarjimani eshitishingiz mumkin bo'ladi. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a great pleasure to invite Head of UNESCO Tashkent Office, Madame Sara Noshaji, for her with her opening remarks. Sara, the floor is yours.
Madam Sidikova, distinguished guests, colleagues, participants of the conference. It's my pleasure to address you all today on this conference dedicated to a critical issue of quality assurance in TVET policies in Uzbekistan. As representatives of various stakeholders, we all share a common goal to ensure that vocational education and training system in Uzbekistan is aligned with the needs of the workforce and the society. We need to achieve this objective through the establishment of an effective quality assurance mechanism. Firstly, Let us consider the economic imperative of quality assurance in TVET. It is well documented that skills gap is one of the most significant challenges facing the national and global economy. Quality assurance mechanism in TVET can help bridge this gap by ensuring that skills and competencies taught are up to date, relevant, and meet the needs of the job market. This in turn can lead to increased economic productivity, job creation, and improved social outcomes. Secondly, quality assurance mechanism improve the credibility of TVET programs and institutions. And through an effective quality assurance system, we can ensure that TVET providers meet higher standards in terms of infrastructure, teaching quality, curriculum, and assessment. Thirdly, a solid operational quality assurance system enables to measure the effectiveness of national TVET policies and programs. It provides data on the relevance and impact of TVET on the economy, labor market, and society. And fourthly, quality assurance system provides a platform for the recognition of prior learning, which is crucial for lifelong learning. Through the assessment and recognition of skills gained through non-formal and informal learning, we can enable people to acquire qualification that recognizes their skills and competencies. And the establishment of the well-functioning quality assurance system is essential for promoting inclusive and equitable education and learning for all. Quality assurance mechanism can help to identify and address barriers to participation in TVET, such as gender, ethnicity, and social background. In conclusion, the establishment of strong quality assurance system in professional education and skills development is critical for ensuring that our workforce is equipped with the skills they need to succeed in today's global economy. It promotes the credibility of TVET qualifications, enables countries to measure the effectiveness of their policies, supports the recognition of prior learning, and promotes inclusive education. We need to work together, and we are many in this country. I appreciate Madam Sadiqova mentioned all the stakeholders. We need to work together and coordinate for this goal. I am sure that our experts will talk more on these aspects during this meeting. And I'm pleased to confirm UNESCO's readiness to support the country with this endeavor, and we continue. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity and thank the European Union for enabling this platform with the financial support extended through a project, a UNESCO project, skills development and employability for rural areas in Uzbekistan. And I would like to thank you, all of you, for your active participation. Thank you. Katar Ahmad.
Thank you, Madam Nashadi. Today I visited the website of Ministry of Higher Education, and there is a President's declaration saying that for the only way of reaching the goal of Uzbekistan for the next years is through the quality of education. So unless we don't ensure the quality in education and professional development, Uzbekistan's ambitious goals for the economical development cannot be achieved. So that's why the quality assurance in TVET, in vocational education and training, is in utmost importance in order to increase the quality of grad school graduates, college graduates, and then their comparability and competitiveness in the global market. For this, thank you very much. With pleasure, the support of the European Union, we are hosting this event, and I have a pleasure to invite head of the international cooperation, Mr. Wim Reepma. Please, floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, hurmatli do'stlar. Dear Madam Sidikova, dear Mrs. Nurshadi, dear colleagues, dear friends, it's a pleasure to be here with you today to talk about quality assurance in TVET. On 1st of January 1994, I started my first job in a pharmaceutical company, just having completed my studies in animal sciences. And during my studies, I've been subjected myself to TVET. So here is standing a product of TVET, who started in a pharmaceutical company, is now head of corporation, a diplomat for the European Union, also thanks to lifelong learning. When I arrived in the company on 1st of January, I had to work on quality assurance. So the first thing I asked my quality manager was, what is quality? What are we trying to achieve? And since it was a company, he said, quality is what the customer demands. What we do here is producing what the customer demands, nothing more and nothing less. I strongly believe the same applies to the public sector. It applies to what we are doing here today. We have to ask, who are our customers? Where will the students work? In the private sector? For the government? What do they demand from our students? Of course, that is partly laid down in standards, national or international standards, but we also need to listen carefully to the employers, whether they are the Ministry of Water Resources or private companies in the agriculture sector. This morning, I received a report from the World Bank, and it said this year there will be 20% less irrigation water available. By 2030, and that's only 7 years away, structurally, 30% less irrigation water will be available here in Uzbekistan. This requires policies, but this also requires skilled people to increase water efficiency. And with that, I want to underline the importance of what we are doing here to ensure that those students who are going to work in the water sector have the right skills that are demanded for the job to tackle tomorrow's problems. As mention was made of the wide field of participants, of actors, players in the area of TVET, I would like to underline that the European Union always works in a so-called Team Europe approach. We work together with our 27 member states, but we also work together with all the development partners in the country. I would like to thank UNESCO for the implementation of this project in a very professional way. I would like to wish you all a very fruitful event today, very good discussions, and I look forward to the results of a well-developed quality assurance system in the TVET sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yutman. Indeed, we have quite a challenging socio-economic future for Uzbekistan in the field of agriculture and irrigation system. And so it makes this project in utmost importance to build the skills, as you say, relevant skills for the efficient use of water resources, existing water resources. So for this, we do our best to prepare the skills and the curriculum for TVET, including the quality assurance mechanism for this curriculum to prepare the use for the future in Uzbekistan. Thank you very much. With this, please join me for the applause for the closing part of the opening remarks, and I will ask our colleagues to take the floor in the auditorium. For the next sessions, I would like to invite my colleagues Mariko and Belinda to take the floor in the podium. Thank you very much. Mariko Fujisawa, please, our expert project colleague for this European funded project, who will introduce us about the objectives of this today's meeting. Mariko, please.
Welcome to the conference on quality assurance policy in Tibet and skills development in Uzbekistan, hosted by the UNESCO project Skills Development for Employability in Rural Areas for Uzbekistan, funded by the European Union. Thank you for coming. This UNESCO project started in 2020, while Uzbekistan has been undergoing a series of reforms in skills development. And since the beginning of this project, we have been trying to support the country with the ongoing reforms. The project has main counterparts of Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Ministry of Employment and Poverty Reduction, Ministry of Agriculture, and Ministry of Water Resources. And this project aims eventually to enhance the living standards in rural areas through better employability for women and men. Let me briefly explain our project. Our project has three main components, and the first one is supporting the Tibet governance at national level, and together with the Ministry of Higher Education and other relevant partners, we have been developing the National Tibet Strategy up to 2030, which we elaborate in the session today. And together with this strategy, we further plan to develop the roadmap to implement the strategy in agriculture and irrigation sectors in particular, and aim to officially launch this strategy within this year. Furthermore, we have been drafting the National Quality Assurance Framework, which is a main topic of today's conference. I'm very pleased to have our two international experts today here, Ms. Belinda Smith and Mr. Jean-Marc Castejon, to talk about these topics today. They have been contributing to develop the strategy and quality assurance framework since the beginning of this project. And further in this component one, the project has been enhancing the capacity of sector skills councils for agriculture and irrigation by equipping the office and providing the several capacity development opportunities to them. The second component of our project is updating the qualifications in agriculture and irrigation sectors through capacity development of relevant stakeholders. So together with national counterparts, we have conducted skills needs assessment with employers and industry people in the 4 pilot regions, which is Karakara, Pakistan, Horazm, Bukhara, and Soandalia, and identify the 6 occupations in agriculture and irrigation sectors, which are in high demand in labor market. And we have developed the occupational standards for these 6 professions. Currently, in continuation, the project is modernizing and developing the competency-based curricula and training based on these developed occupational standards. These activities have been conducted together with Ministry of Higher Education, Institute of Pedagogical Innovations, Sector Skills Council, academia, and from agriculture and irrigation sectors, as well as industry people and private sectors to ensure the strong link between industry and training providers at colleges. The third component of our project is focusing on the modernization of 4 pilot colleges for agriculture and irrigation sectors in the 4 regions. So we are trying to refurbish the college buildings, providing the relevant agriculture and irrigation equipment to implement the competency-based curricula for these occupations, and further developing learning materials, training materials, and providing trainings to the teachers to implement this curriculum. So across the project and further in Tibet in general, quality assurance is the key at national quality level to the ground level at training providers of colleges and educational institutions. And it ensures the reliability of skilling and increases the transparency of Tibet system between countries, that the graduate from the colleges and educational institutions obtain the industry relevant skills which are matching to the needs of labor market across the world. The project is, in the next weeks, working on further capacity development in relation to quality assurance at colleges in our 4 regions, focusing on implementation of quality improvement plan and internal quality management system at colleges, which are also following the EQUAVET, the European Quality Assurance Reference Framework in Tibet, which is one of the main topics of today's conference. And the project further will continuously work on the quality process for the main actors on Tibet, which are like Sector Skills Council, assessment centers, to ensure the quality assurance. So in today's conference, firstly, together with our quality assurance expert, Belinda, we would like to discuss the application of EQUAVET in Uzbekistan by introducing several models from other countries. And we further aim to design the quality assurance framework by discussing the roles and function of stakeholders together all of you. And in the second session, together with our Tibet expert, Jean-Marc, we would elaborate the draft national Tibet strategy in relation to quality assurance, and we aim to reach the common understanding of a role of quality assurance policy among all the relevant stakeholders and participants here. So finally, I would like to thank you all again for your active participation and contribution to this meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mariko. Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari, endi hozir aytilgandek tadbirimiz 2 qismga bo'lingan. Birinchi qismida biz Yevropada kasbiy ta'limni sifatini ta'minlash bo'yicha ma'lumotni eshitamiz va bu ramka deyiladi. EQUAVET ramkasini O'zbekistonga tatbiq qilish uchun bizda qanday qadamlar bosishimiz kerak bo'yicha takliflarni eshitamiz xalqaro ekspertlarimizdan. Va ikkinchi qismida esa kasbiy ta'limda O'zbekiston strategiyasi bo'yicha taqdimoti bo'ladi va bu bo'yicha muhokamalarni amalga oshiramiz. Ijozatlaringiz bilan birinchi qismdagi taqdimotimizni terminologiyalari ozgina qiyinroq. Shuning uchun biz ekspertimizdan shuni iltimos qilardikki, taqdimot qilganda sekinroq qilishsa, sekinroq darajada bizda tarjimonlarimiz sifatli tarjima qilishga ulgurishsa. Chunki bu juda o'ziga xos spesifik bo'laligi uchun terminologiyalarda ozgina xatoliklar ham bo'lib, tushunmovchiliklar ham bo'lib qolishi mumkin. Ijozatlaringiz bilan Belinda xonimni taklif qilsam, Belinda, you can take the floor. Floor is yours, please. And there is a clicker for your switch.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming today, and I appreciate that you have taken time out of your very busy schedules to be here with us to hear about this. I'm going to, as Bakhtiyor has mentioned, talk about the EQUAVET program, and the EQUAVET stands for the European Quality Assurance Framework for Vocational Education and Training. So the term EQUAVET is the term that's given to that framework. It is a reference framework, just like the European Qualifications Framework is a reference framework. So it has a number of agreed methodologies that will be applied within the European Union, and it allows them to, because they've applied the same methodologies and tools, that they can then have mutual assurance that their systems are robust, and they can also benchmark from each other and to learn good practice from each other. So that's what we'll be looking at now. So when I'm talking about the EQUAVET, I'm referencing the European Quality Assurance in Vocational Education and Training. The topics that we will cover very quickly is what is quality, the European Quality Assurance Reference Framework for Vocational Education and Training, some country examples so that you can see this fairly abstract concept in how it's applied in different countries, and a proposed quality assurance framework for here in Uzbekistan. And then we'll just very quickly look at some of the quality standards. So why is quality so important? Why do we want to focus on it? We do know that the greater the links between institutions and industry, the greater the relevance of the training outcomes, both to the labour market, to employers, but also to the graduates in ensuring that they get decent work. And so the focus on quality is very much trying to steer the TVET system into achieving those outcomes. High quality TVET programs, and I'm using the word TVET here to cover both what is called in this country, I think it's the vocational education and the vocational training sectors, that we're being inclusive in our definition of what we're covering, because we're wanting to also make sure that there are learning pathways from people to move from lower vocational programs into higher vocational programs as well. And if we share the same approach to quality assurance, that's a major step in it being able to develop the trust between the different approaches to education to allow that to happen. High quality programs increase the attractiveness because they increase the likelihood of people gaining decent employment and the satisfaction of employers, and therefore there's a follow-on increase in the status of vocational education. A quality framework is one of the platforms that needs to be in place to start the recognition process for international recognition of qualifications, for skilled migration, but also for students to be able to go and further their studies easily in another country as well. And also for lecturers to be able to go and work in other countries. There are, luckily, internationally recognised approaches to quality assurance, not only in TVET, but in any industry sector. And they involve things like continuous improvement approaches, and we'll be looking at that in more detail, using a quality cycle. So you plan what you're going to do, you look at how you're implementing it, then you review how you're implementing it, and then you evaluate the outcomes before moving through that process again. Most systems have a quality management system. A quality management system involves having your vision and your objectives, and also documenting your procedures and your processes so that everyone knows what is happening and that you can then go back and check and improve these things. There's usually internal and external evaluations that are undertaken, stakeholder engagement to get their feedback and their input and ideas, benchmarking so that you can improve the system and bring everything up, and a quality culture and strong leadership as well, participative leadership. So these are all of the things that make up what we will see as ECOVET. These are the approaches that you usually see in most companies as well. So as was raised earlier, what is quality? Well, we know that the goal of vocational education is to equip people with the knowledge and skills to perform in their workplace. So to reduce the mismatch between what the labour market is after and what the education system is providing people. So we're wanting to meet labour market needs. It's also about providing people with the skills and knowledge so that they can also have a meaningful participation, not only in work, but also in life. So those are very important soft skills that employers demand are also important for other areas as well. Quality improves the outcomes for all stakeholders. So having quality processes within your TVET system improves the outcomes both for the staff internally, that they feel more motivated and happy because systems are working and they can see improvements. They improve the outcomes for students and they improve the outcomes for employers. Okay. So quality control and quality improvement are not the same.
Manzil 100.174 Toşkent
We came
SH
here last year,
Olmazor
we looked
Tumani
at, we
Üniversite
analysed
Koçası
the
7
current
Ü.
system of quality that is being applied to the colleges here. And it's very much the quality control approach. So that there's a one-off inspection that occurs, they meet the criteria, and then that's it. And so that's a quality control approach. It's very reactive. It works on problems once they've been identified and they've already occurred. What we're looking to move to is more about quality improvement. And we want to have quality improvement because we want to be able to identify problems before they happen, to improve and enhance the program and be a lot more responsive to both labour market needs and our client needs. And our clients are both employers and students. It's usually led by staff, so we have a bottom-up and a top-down approach happening at the same time. And that might sound contradictory, but as we'll look at under the ECAVET system, we have a systems-level approach to quality, and then we have a provider approach to quality. So we will look at that in a moment. An important feature of quality improvement is building a quality culture and building leadership to be able to proactively take control of the quality issues within their institution. Staff must be able to identify issues or problems without fear of being punished. And for a lot of TVET systems in the early stages of reforms, this is quite a new concept for staff. Usually the identification of an issue or a problem is seen as difficult to raise, and so they tend not to raise it. So this is something that we need to look at as well. Problems should be seen as an opportunity to improve things. And the involvement of stakeholders, which is also often a new thing, is about transparency as well. And transparency is often a new concept for people to deal with. And so this is something that we'll be looking at and spending some time on it. It's often overlooked. A TVET quality assurance framework. The reason why the ECAVET program states that we want and need to have a systems level quality assurance program is it helps to strengthen the relevance of outcomes right across the system to employers. So this college and that college are delivering the same level of outcomes for the same qualification. There's no variation there. There's consistency in the graduate outcomes. There's an improvement in the status of TVET because people can more readily understand what is coming out of the colleges. It emphasises the improvement and the evaluation. And so that improves outcomes such as employability, the match between supply and demand, but also access to better and lifelong learning. Because if we're meeting industry's needs more, we also have to start designing qualifications that meet the upskilling of people as well. And so there's a greater flexibility that can occur once we start involving the stakeholders in the processes. It builds trust and confidence and minimises the misuse of public funds as well. Because we are looking to provide quality standards around the different products, and here by products I mean things like the national competency standards, the qualifications, the assessment processes. We can identify that they meet a quality standard before further money is invested into those products to turn them into the next stage in the value chain. So the next stage for NOS would be turned into curriculum and then delivered in colleges. And we want to make sure right at the beginning that they are of a good and robust quality before we invest the money into developing the curriculum and then training people. And so having the systems level quality assurance helps us to do that as well, and therefore to minimise that the risk of misuse of public funds. Okay, so the European Quality Assurance for Vocational Education and Training framework, it's, as I have mentioned, it operates both at the systems level and the training institutional level, and it provides a quality assurance set of methodologies or tools that can be used to introduce a methodical approach to things. It doesn't stipulate things like an internal quality management system. And so what we find in some countries, they may use the ISO certification. They may use the European Foundation for Quality Management certification, or they may develop their own set of certification criteria. There is that flexibility within the ECAVET program framework to do that. The ECAVET framework identifies common indicators, and the common indicators then allow benchmarking to occur both within the country, across the different systems, but also between European countries. It emphasises monitoring and improvement of quality through internal self-evaluation and external processes and quality analysis of the data. And it's implemented through national reference points. And we'll look at those in a moment when we move on to the country examples. Some of the common tools that it uses that the European countries have agreed to use is the quality cycle. So planning, implementation, evaluation and review. It offers comparability because countries are using the same approaches. It offers transparencies of qualifications and competencies because the processes are robust and they're understood by everyone. It offers the opportunity for developing a platform for mobility of people around the EU. And it provides mutual confidence in the TVET system. So between countries, they can be confident of the quality that is operating in each of their countries. So within Europe, there are national reference points who are tasked with coordinating within their country the implementation of their ECAVET framework. And they also then provide feedback to the EU to say how they're going, how they're progressing with this process. And they also participate in peer reviews across country borders so that people can see how things are improving, to offer advice and to learn good practice from each other and bring everyone up a lot faster in improving their quality. They mobilise a range of stakeholders in the sense that they normally bring people together. So within their countries, they will run peer review programs within their country. A peer review program is where you bring together a group of people. It may be a group of teachers, it might be a group of principals, and they identify an issue that they want to look at in a particular college or in a particular region or a particular thematic area. And then they go and look at that, and they study it, then they come back, they write up their results, and then they discuss that and disseminate that. So it's a way of building knowledge and understanding of good practice within systems. So these national reference points are part of the continual improvement mechanism as well as being a coordinating body. The ECAVET has as one of its foundations is cooperation and collaboration. And for many, this is a new concept within their systems. Many TVET systems are very internal looking, that when they're doing their planning, they look at what training they've delivered in the past and they continue to deliver that training. They don't look externally to their stakeholders to identify what they should be delivering. And this helps to break open that view and to start getting people to engage a lot more and to collaborate. In the EU sponsors a number of peer review processes and peer learning activities, and they have done peer reviews and learning activities around things like the qualifications and learning outcomes. So they've started to, they've actually developed criteria for identifying a robust learning outcome for curriculum. And this then allows everyone to use the same approach there and to build quality there. They've looked at assessment of learning outcomes, mobility. So how can we start looking at how do we recognise people? What are we going to look at for that process to occur and being able to occur readily? They've looked at digitalisation and greening as two major issues. As we've heard earlier today, the climate crisis is something affecting everyone. And then continuing professional development as well. So for teachers, what kind of skill sets do we need to give them to continually improve and implement quality processes and to work with their stakeholder groups. This approach is very good because it is very flexible and it allows, it doesn't matter if you are say in the case of Uzbekistan, where you can have a very good quality, well-resourced college within Tashkent, and then in a regional area such as around Termez, you might have a college that isn't very well resourced. And people grapple with how do we implement quality in both of these. A lot of these processes and quality improvement, we can implement those activities and start building these processes, and so that it can be applied across the different colleges. And I've worked in countries where there have been similar situations. You've got well-resourced urban areas and very poor rural areas, and we've still been able to make quality improvements of a kind that has had a really big impact on those colleges. It's also about transparency and comparability. And transparency is something that we normally don't participate in. We normally, you know, that we're a big bureaucracy and we have our year plans, our five yearly plans, and we just go through our normal processes. Involving stakeholders is a very new process, and being accountable to our local community and our local businesses is also something that's often new for us. But by having common quality assurance indicators, we can start benchmarking and identifying how we're performing. We can use the use of a qualifications framework allows us to start benchmarking our qualifications against different parts of our own internal system, as well as our external countries that we might be talking to. Recognitions of qualifications gained through mobility. So people who are moving either from, say, vocational training into vocational education, there's a seamless path because the learning outcomes are understood, the assessment processes are understood, the underlying quality of delivery is understood. Or it may be that and we've got the DARIA program through the ETF at the moment as well, looking at a regional recognition process and ensuring that you've got a common understanding and a common quality framework helps that mobility to happen. It assists in benchmarking and it builds trust in the qualification outcomes. It also helps us to start building up a database so that we can make database decision making as well. So the ECAVET promotes continuous improvement. At the systems level, it's a systematic approach, and this is what we're looking at with the framework. There is self-evaluation and peer reviews. There's systems levels reviews that can be undertaken so that the whole system, how is it performing? Is it performing in the way we want it to perform, given our particular objectives? and that can also undertake thematic reviews. Because we're dealing with continuous improvement, it helps to encourage innovation and experimentation too, particularly if we do place an emphasis on developing a quality culture and there isn't a problem with identifying problems, then we start to see more experimentation and more innovation. And again, we do this through the use of the quality cycle. Okay, so the EU has agreed on a number of quality indicators. These indicators are voluntary indicators. They can be customized, they can be added to, some can be taken out. There is an agreement that these are available for countries to reference. Some of this data in Uzbekistan is not going to be readily available. And so this kind of looking at national quality indicators, it has to be an incremental approach. Last year, I looked at the reporting requirements of the colleges, so their annual plans and their 5-year plans, and start to identify and pull out data that we could start using for different criteria and areas. And so there's data available, but it will be an incremental process to start developing that completely. So these indicators look at things such as the utilisation of applied skills in the workplace. So at the moment, I think most colleges get a certificate from the employers when someone gets employment. If we can also ask them about their satisfaction level of the skills that have been developed, is it what they needed? Is an example of how that indicator could be used. Okay, so national coordination. For nationally consistent outcomes, for national qualifications, having coordination at a national level is important at the beginning of a training reform process. Different countries have very different approaches depending on how mature their TVET systems are and how skilled how well resourced their systems are. National coordinations allows that benchmarking across ministries, because if there's a lot of different ministries providing TVET, we want to make sure it's consistent so that people can move across different areas and employers can expect the same outcomes. As we've mentioned before, it assists with lifelong learning and migrant worker recognition, international qualification recognition, and it helps organisations to standardise the approaches that they use to evaluate their own quality performance. Okay, so moving on and looking at some of the country processes, we've got, as I mentioned, in each EU country, there is a national reference point, and in Germany, it's the German ECOVET office, which is based in the Federal Institute of VET. What they do is, within the German system, there are 16 federal states, and so the ECOVET, as I'm calling it, coordinates while preserving their individual state autonomies. So how they go about doing that is that they coordinate improvement processes, so quality improvement processes across the various states. They assist with benchmarking, they assist with providing information back from the other EU countries on what they're doing back into each of those states. So they do a lot of the facilitation of network activities and peer learning activities, the integration of bringing the stakeholders in and holding those discussions. The quality assurance is actually legislated within each of the 16 federal states. And so it's slightly different in each of those federal states. What has happened under the ICABET model is that they now all 16 states have internal and external audits or inspections of some kinds now occurring. The different states also use different quality management certifications. So some will use the ISO, some use the European Foundation for Quality Management certification, and some states have actually developed their own criteria for their own context. Many are strengthening individual responsibilities of schools. So that's a process of ensuring the institution's autonomy and ability to continually implement these processes. Again, they use the equality cycle. They meet and have regular exchanges at the state level as well as at the national level. And in fact, it's been working so well that in some states, this process is now moving into general education as well. There is also a process for in-company learning through the dual system. And the national reference point is also working with the intermediary agencies such as the chambers and giving them a central role in the quality assurance of companies. So looking at their exams, monitoring their implementation in the training companies, and stakeholder feedback. Some of the products that have been developed through this process have been a quality assurance set of guidelines for international internships and vocational college activities overseas. A quality assurance system for the dual system itself. And so looking at in-company or the work-based learning quality assurance side of it. So in this system, this is a really good example of a country that internally has quite separate quality assurance responsibilities and still having a coordinating role over the top of them to support them in that process for national consistency. Okay, the Finnish system, again, they have a national agency for education and it is an independent agency. It reports directly to the Minister for Education and who reports to the Cabinet of Ministers. They are the national reference point and they provide counselling to their institutions about quality issues and providing advice there. The Finnish system is a very interesting model because it's what we call a light touch quality approach. They don't have any inspections and it is voluntary. And however, they all participate. And one of the reasons they participate, or they, when you talk to people within the Finnish system, say, is that because they have high engagement from their stakeholders, and so there is very much a culture of quality culture already in existence. So people continue that process. The Finnish Education Evaluation Centre is also an independent agency. They manage the systems level reviews and analysis. So they provide the quality improvement processes and the data so that decisions can be made based on that data. The institutes, they undertake an evaluation process of their own internal quality processes and do continuous improvements, and they apply the same principles under the ECABET program within their individual colleges. Their working life committees, which are basically what you may heard of as sector skills councils. They develop the qualifications, their standards, they're involved in the assessment along with a qualified teacher. They are employers, and they provide advice on what their labour market needs are. The Finnish Education Evaluation Centre informs the National Agency for Education of the outcomes of its work, and a lot of that's either visiting the various institutions or it's the thematic reviews as well. That information is then put into a national action plan or a longer term action plan, and they then work towards that. The individual colleges are funded according to the data that's collected on the quality of their provider performance. So it's directly tied to that as well. So they're very, very involved with the quality culture and working very closely with their working life committees or their sector skills councils. Okay, the Irish model. The Quality and Qualifications Island is the national reference point in Ireland for the EU, for the ECAVET project. They are also an awarding body, and we'll look at that in a moment. As a qualifications and quality agency, they issue the core quality assurance guidelines for all the different sectors within the education area. So for universities, as well as the TVET sector, as well as general education. They have core guidelines that look at the organisational requirements. So things like how the organisation is managed. So the quality management system within the centre. There's a core set of criteria there. And then they have guidelines that are specific to the activities of the various organisations. So they have provider guidelines, awarding body guidelines, and then guidelines for blended learning, assessment, validation, and those areas, so that there's criteria that's very specific to them. The Qualifications and Quality and Qualifications Island, they also act as a facilitator of quality improvement. So they bring people together and they exchange best practice approaches and ideas. They run conferences on good practice, and they run internal peer reviews, and they participate in the ECAVET peer reviews in other countries as well. And they monitor the overall system, and they do thematic evaluations and reviews, as well as whole of system reviews as well. They do external inspections of their awarding bodies. The awarding bodies have been given delegated authority to award qualifications, develop qualifications, and to accredit their training providers. And so they monitor them as well. And they provide advice on international qualifications recognition programs, and they register their qualifications. The Indian model, we have the agency is the National Council for Vocational Education and Training, and the National Council for Vocational Education and Training has within it responsibility for the qualifications framework, responsibility for the quality system, and they also have a research division within them. In the Indian system, they have awarding bodies because it's a very large country with a very large number of providers. And so the awarding bodies are responsible for quality assuring their providers. And that's a way that they're able to guarantee that those providers are being managed and monitored. So they have an MOU with NCVET, and they have to maintain that, otherwise they lose their awarding body status. They provide data back to the National Council for VET. That data is collected, that data is analysed, it identifies areas for continuous improvement, then at a national level, they develop up their action plan or adjust their national policies so that those changes can be implemented. Excuse me. They also have assessment agencies, and they do the assessments independently for the qualifications. And they again have to have an MOU with the National Agency for Quality. Okay, I'm getting the hurry up sign, sorry. Okay. So now we're looking at the Uzbek Quality Assurance Framework. As I mentioned earlier, we have reviewed the existing arrangements, and from that, we've also looked at the reporting requirements, what the ECAVET requirements are, and we've started to develop up a framework there and identifying the kinds of agencies that could be in place. And it has to be something that is pragmatic, because if we looked at the old state inspectorate, it did not have the staff to be able to do the external evaluations on an ongoing basis. So we need to make sure we've got something in place that can support what's viable here. As a first stage, where it has to be across all ministries and providers. So it's no one ministry is responsible for this. It's something that occurs across all ministries. The agencies to be involved, again, it builds on existing organisations and the legislation that is currently in place within the country. We're proposing that there are quality reference officers, like there are national reference points, but that these are national reference officers for each of the ministries and their line training organisations. So we can start getting some cross-fertilisation of good practice happening in the country. That there be some kind of trained auditors or trained quality advisors who can go and moderate and validate any audit or inspection decisions, but more importantly, so that they can provide support for implementation in the first phases of the system. We need to look at system level data collection, and we've started to look at some of the data points that could be included there. We've also started to look at what kinds of quality standards we can produce. And again, these quality standards are based on international best practice. They conform with what you would expect under an ECAVET system. And we have been consulting with Helvetis and other development partners to make sure that we're not doubling up on the work that we're doing. So at the moment, we've looked at the TVET providers and what their current quality criteria is. And we've added to that, or we've changed that slightly. We've looked at the sector skills councils, and there is some generic organisational criteria and processes that can be put into place. So, things such as the internal quality management systems and things like that. And then there's specific agency data. So for training delivery, what needs to be embedded there, for the management of assessment processes, for recording assessment, for example, for the development of national occupational standards. None of what's being proposed is new. We've certainly got this, all of this comes out of a lot of research and shows that these approaches work and that these approaches result in good outcomes for organisations. The ECAVET tools are all good practice for quality systems, and we find these in lots of different quality systems around the world, in TVET, but also in industry. Then having a national coordination in place helps to improve the entire system, and this is why it's been recommended by ECAVET. it helps to drive reform processes. Oh, thank you. Okay. So there's lots of benefits to having a national framework in place, and we have discussed these previously, but a major part of it is that we develop a quality culture that leads to more innovation and experimentation, but more importantly, staff are happier. Staff know what they're doing. They can proactively get involved in improving their work, so they know they're doing their best work. They're not frustrated. People are happy, so they're more motivated. They're more interested. And it also helps to build their capacity through them looking at improvements and reflecting on what they're doing and to make improvements. So there's a lot of benefits for having these systems in place. Thank you.
Okay. Oops. Thank you very much, Belinda. I think it's quite intense topic. We have to have some question and answer session discussions, maybe to unpack some key features of the EQUAVET and then national qualification framework, the national quality framework in Uzbekistan as well. For this, maybe perhaps I would also ask my colleague Jean-Marc Castejon to come and join us in the floor to have some reflection and discussions. Yeah. So Belinda, we convinced that EQUAVET is a framework to set up the quality measurements for the vocational education training across the European countries. And this EQUAVET is gaining the popularity around the world. And many countries are trying to adopt or align their TVET provision with EQUAVET, and the same with Uzbekistan. The Uzbekistan TVET sector, professional education sector, has been facing the radical reforms recent years. And in January, we also had another wave of the reform of the skills development education provision in the country. So, so the question is, in order to align the national TVET system in Uzbekistan with EQUAVET, what would be the immediate steps that the country should take, and what would be your key recommendations so that we Uzbekistan should consider in this endeavor? Yeah.
I would recommend firstly to approach the European Training Foundation to see if there is some way that Uzbekistan may participate in some of the peer review processes. I think that would be really valuable. But on top of that, I think there is the first step is looking at what the overall framework would be and clearly identifying roles and responsibilities. We need to identify that, and we need to then start looking at piloting some of these processes. So next week, we're actually going out to the regions and we're working with some of the colleges to start looking at introducing them to this system as well. And I think that that's a good first step. We've got a number of donor projects and people here today who are working in the same area. And I think us meeting and coordinating which we have been doing to an extent, is important as well. One very good thing for from a government perspective is that the principles and approach to quality are basically the same. So there won't be conflicting ideas, and the approaches should fit together quite well, I think.
Yes, great. Jean-Marc, any reflections, insights in this regard?
Good morning. To the issue of the next step, I mean, the first steps, I have a ready-made answer. I mean, there's two aspects. There's the kind of political aspect and the technical aspect. Equavet is a European tool. It has been developed by the Commission, by the European Commission, with 27 member states. If Uzbekistan is going to apply Equavet, they need to have information given to the Equavet working group, so that Uzbekistan, as a partner country of the EU, is admitted into the club of Equavet. This is only a political dimension, information to give. There was the same problem a few years ago when there was this other EU tool, the European qualification framework. For the non-EU countries to align, they had to go through the EQF working group and say that they want to align. The tools, Equavet, like EQF, are open tools. They are open to partner countries. But there is a move to make towards the Commission. The European Training Foundation, which is the agency of the Commission, which is supporting the partner countries, would be the bridge between Uzbekistan as partner country of the EU and the Equavet working group. So that's a formal dimension which has to be done. I think that I had the opportunity to speak about this before. The other thing, internally, Equavet is an important tool for benchmarking, but quality doesn't come from outside, come from inside. When the countries are going to join the Equavet, they're going to join peer reviews. The first thing that Uzbekistan will have to say is the first thing that Uzbekistan would be asked is, what is Uzbekistan doing for quality assurance? First thing, it's not, quality assurance don't come from outside. But we have an answer in Uzbekistan, because we have a strategy being discussed. And in the strategy, in the first component of the strategy, as I will say later on after the break, there is a component on quality assurance and qualification authority. It's the first component of the strategy, if it is admitted. So the strategy is one thing. Once the strategy is validated, action plan of the component one would be an action plan on how do we build the qualification authority and a quality assurance authority. You see, the first component of the strategy and the first action plan, which will be hopefully developed here. So when we speak to Equavet, when Uzbekistan will speak to Equavet team, they will say, we are in our strategy developing quality assurance system, quality assurance framework.
Thank you, Jean-Marc. Belinda, as you said, the first step would be the addressing the European delegation through ETF, European Training Foundation. So perhaps maybe we will ask our colleagues from European delegation or the projects that from the European countries, whether they are kind of what kind of support they can provide for the Ministry of Higher Education. In this task, maybe later on during our discussions, we may ask colleagues to respond to this question. So, and there are, of course, we say that EQUAWET or the quality assurance framework is not the sole responsibility of the one entity. In many countries, we see that there is a collaboration, cooperation, and it's collective responsibility of many entities. So the next question would be, what would be the roles and responsibilities of the national stakeholders in order to adopt a solid quality assurance mechanism for the TVET, so that Uzbekistan's TVET is recognized globally and accepted globally? So what would be the roles of responsibilities that the government should take as an immediate action? Maybe Belinda, you would like to start?
Well, firstly, I think it's up to the government to decide on the roles and responsibilities. As part of the development of the draft framework that will go out for consultation, we've identified the kinds of functions that need to be in place for the system to operate as a good practice model, and to maintain the EQUAWET approaches. So we've identified what those functions or roles and responsibilities are, but we haven't identified who would do those. That would be a government requirement.
Great. Jean-Marc, any insights?
Roles and responsibility. I would take a practice. In a quality assurance system, there are three levels. You have the level of the regulator, the awarding bodies or certifier, and the providers. Let's speak about the providers, the role of the providers. In a quality assurance system, as Belinda said in her presentation, all the providers providing a training program, let's say of a level 4 of the qualification framework. Quality assurance goes with qualification. In a quality assurance system, the provider who is providing a training program at level 4 of a college in Uzbekistan, level 4, the role of the provider is to have the quality assurance of the curricula, outcome-based curricula, competency-based curricula. Quality assurance of the venue, quality assurance of the on the trainer, and quality assurance on the assessment. Each provider which belong to one system, one qualification framework, has to provide a service training at level 4 according to the regulation given by the quality assurance system. This is the role of the provider, following regulation standards which are common to the whole system. In a quality assurance system, we're all doing the same thing. A level 4 in a college is a level 4 all over the country. It has to be to follow standards, and all the colleges has to follow the same standard for the same level. It is not obvious to say that training program is a certain level. It's not because you follow a curricula that you follow a level. To follow a qualification level, you need to have in mind standards which each provider must apply.
Great. So, Jean-Marc, to continue your justification. So who sets the standards? Who regulates entire framework? Who should do this? Who's the responsibility in case of, let's say, Uzbekistan?
Yes, it is a quality assurance system. Quality assurance system, as I said before, there are three levels: regulator, certifier, or ministries, different ministries, and provider. quality, when there is a qualification, quality assurance system, there must be someone in charge of the quality assurance and of the qualification system. In most of the countries, let me tell you about Europe. The case of Europe, when the European countries realized, was asked by the European Commission to compare the qualification frameworks after the EQF, after the European qualification framework came to existence, all the countries wanted to align the qualification framework onto the European qualification framework. So there was 10 criteria. The first criteria the European Commission asked the country is, what is your quality assurance system? Germany, Austria, Finland didn't have any problem. They had quality assurance in the law. But countries like France, I think Italy, they had problem with and so the first referencing report of the countries to the Europe. What do we do about quality assurance? We don't know. Well, we try to do, but so the reaction of the after 2008, after the coming of the European qualification framework, countries which wanted to act created agencies. France created agencies called France Competence in charge of quality assurance system. Portugal created an agency. So, and the agencies were the regulator. They were defining the standard, the levels, the quality assurance principles. But it is the qualification framework, the European qualification framework, which are brought into the light, the importance of quality assurance, the importance of making qualification transparent and comparable. If you don't have a qualification, if you don't have a quality assurance with a qualification system, you don't have a qualification system. And this European countries realized lately, not long ago, apart from Germany, of course, Austria, Finland, which understood this long before the others. But one country realized they need to work on transparency, quality assurance system. We need a regulator who gives the principle, and then the certifiers will, ministries will implement what the regulator said. Do I answer the question? I'm not sure.
Yes, maybe Belinda, you would like to fulfill with it?
Certainly in the draft framework or the pre-draft framework, because it's about to go out, there is a recommendation that there is a central agency to coordinate and to monitor implementation. And the reason that has been recommended is that often in countries that are in the early stages of the reform process, where there isn't consistent capacity across the system, it's very hard to ensure that the system is moving at the same pace and in the same direction. So by having a central agency helps to assure that process. I did a 4-country review for the Asian Development Bank of countries in Asia that had quality assurance frameworks in place for about 10 years. And the ones that performed best were the ones that had a central agency and also had quality advisors in place. And so both of those recommendations are in that document.
Thank you. Perhaps we will open the floor for the other participants to ask the questions or reflections or ideas, including how can we establish the link and help the ministry to reach out to maybe ETF or European country governments in order to bring this EQVET in the country context. So, colleagues, floor is open for the suggestion and questions. Please. we of course we have projects, development projects from the European countries. We're also working on the quality assurance mechanisms. We welcome the questions, if any.
And could I just say that don't feel as though any question is crazy or stupid, because we know that the terminology is quite dense. And so if you just want to even clarify what something means, please feel free to ask that as well.
Yes, please. Aslan aka, marhamat, o'zingizni tanishtirib.
Assalomu alaykum. Shveysariyaning O'zbekistonda professional ta'lim islohotlarini qo'llab-quvvatlash loyihasi eksperti Asliddin Odilov. Men 3 ta savolim bor edi. Birinchi savolim hozir bu yerda muhokamalarda ko'proq aynan tizim darajasida qanday muvofiqlashtirish haqida gap ketdi-da. Menda savol shu ediki, baribir professional ta'limda sifatni birinchi egasi bu o'sha ta'lim muassasasi, chunki kadr tayyorlaydi-da. Demak, shu milliy ta'lim sifatini ta'minlash o'sha ramkasini ishlab chiqishimizda o'sha aynan o'sha ta'lim muassasasi sifatli egasi bo'lishini ta'minlashimiz uchun nimalar qilishimiz zarur? Nima bu haqda maslahatlar bera oladi bizda ekspertlarimiz? Chunki mana O'zbekiston sharoitini ular 2 yildan beri ko'rib kelishyapti va xabardorlar. Aynan o'sha ular sifatga bo'lgan egalik hissini his qilish uchun aynan bizda qanday bir nimalar yetishmayapti, nimalarga e'tibor qaratishimiz kerak. Ikkinchi masala aynan o'sha boshqaruv savolga doir edi. Bu savolda bizda loyihamiz o'sha Shveysariya texnologiya universiteti ekspertlarini jalb qilgan holda tadqiqot o'tkazishida aynan professional ta'limda boshqaruv tizimi qanday va boshqa davlatlarga nisbatan qanaqa. Va bu yerda asosiy xulosa bo'ldiki, bizda boshqaruv tizimi resursga yo'naltirilgan, tabaqalashtirilgan, ya'ni tarqoq holda degan xulosaga kelindi. Demak, biz aynan shu tizimni shu holligicha ta'lim sifatini ta'minlash ramkasini ishlab chiqishimiz bu yerda muhimmi, yoki bu tizimni resursga emas, balki natijaga yo'naltirilgan muvofiqlashtiruvchi bir tizimga aylantirish orqaligimi? Aynan bu yerda ham ko'p bahslarga sabab bo'lyapti-da bu. Ya'ni o'sha input oriented fragmented dan output oriented more coordinated. Va bunda aynan ikkalasida ham sifatni ta'minlash, milliy tizimini ishlab chiqishimizda yondashuv qanday bo'lishi kerak? Va uchinchi savolim, endi bilamiz bizda professional ta'lim bor va shuningdek kasbga o'qitish bor. Kasbga o'qitishda katta yoshdagilar ham jalb qilinadi. Ya'ni katta yoshdagilar ta'limi ham bu yoqqa kiradi. Aynan shu milliy tizim ishlab chiqishimizda bu katta yoshdagilarni ta'limini qanchalik hisobga olishimiz muhimroq bo'ladi. Va o'zi 4-chi savolim bor ekan. 4-chi savolimiz bu, bilamizki professional ta'limda sifat asosan o'sha amaliy ko'nikmalarni shakllantirish, ya'ni bevosita ish joyida, korxonada o'qitish orqali sifatni shakllantirish muhim. Chunki qo'li bilan, ko'zi bilan ko'rgan bola baribir unda amaliy ko'nikmalar boshqacha bo'ladi. Biz hozir IKOVET ramkasini taqdimotida ham ko'rdik. Aynan o'sha ish joyida o'qitib amaliy ko'nikmani shakllantirish ko'rinmagandek bo'ldi bunga. Aynan chunki bizda hozir professional ta'limda duallashtirish jarayoni kelyapti. Duallashtirish degani ta'limning bir qismi ish joyida, korxonada bo'lishi kerak degan narsa. Aynan shu narsani o'sha ta'lim sifatini, milliy ramkasini ishlab chiqarishda qanday singdirishimiz mumkin? Bu bo'yicha tavsiyalar bo'lsa. Rahmat.
Aslan aka, rahmat. Savollar uchun rahmat. 4 ta savol bo'ldi. Endi juz'atlaringiz bilan shu 4 ta savolga ekspertlarimizning munosabatini eshitsak. So, Belinda, if the questions are clear, I can also repeat.
I've got 3 of them.
Okay.
I missed one.
Which one we missed?
I don't know.
Okay, go ahead with the 3 questions, maybe.
Okay. So I think the first question, which was looking at what gaps are there for providers when delivering qualifications and how much autonomy and ownership they should have. Certainly some of the gaps I see from a quality point of view, just internally within the training institution, is that there needs to be quality training, so that not only do teachers need to have the pedagogy training, they need to have skills in implementing and maintaining quality approaches. That leadership training for the institution is important. Industry engagement, so that they can engage with their local industry members and maintain meaningful relationships. The issue of delivering a qualification, this is one of the points that we're having discussions about for the quality assurance framework for Uzbekistan, is whether there is going to be a role for awarding bodies and the process of assuring the delivery, the assessment and the certification processes, and then the data retention, so that the student records and the graduate records processes as well. So that's something that is currently under discussion, but it certainly needs to be addressed because that's an important part of the qualification framework and the quality framework, making sure that those things are in place. So at the moment, that is a gap, but it's under discussion, so hopefully it won't remain a gap. Follow-up training. So this is like skilling existing workers. I'm wondering if that's what you... Yeah. So if we have a consistent approach to the quality processes and someone has graduated, moved into a job and are working and then want to come back and undertake either specialist training in a particular area or for career development purposes, a longer program, that should be done in a mature system, that should be accommodated in the qualifications framework. And we see more and more the micro-credentials that are being issued in different countries. And that's partly recognition that people need very specific skill sets as top-up training in their jobs. So in mature systems, that should be accommodated and be flexible enough to accommodate that. On the job or in company training is something that I know some of our colleagues are working on at the moment, looking at quality standards there, but certainly there needs to be quality processes, learning outcomes and a formalised approach to in-company training. And if there is a formalised approach and there are learning outcomes, there's no reason why that learning cannot be recognised on a qualifications framework, because, you know, all qualifications are based on learning outcomes.
So further to remind the question, first question was about the quality for the TVET, for the skills development is provided in the first place by the educational institution in the field. So they are delivering the quality. So in order to increase the responsibilities, accountability of the educational institutions in the field in terms of quality delivery of the programs, what should be the enabling factors around what kind of policies should be adopted? How can we increase the accountability and responsibility of the educational institutions in delivering the quality of programs? I think that was the first question.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. for clarification. Yeah, how to build the sense of ownership of quality for TVET providers.
One thing that's often forgotten when implementing a quality management system within an organisation is people forget about the people-centred approach. You know, it is a people-centred approach. And that has to be developed. And this is something that I'm glad you asked this question, because it's actually the most important aspect of it, is developing a quality culture. And quality is about the people who use the procedures, the processes, and their stakeholders. It's about the people that are involved in it. And ownership is only developed and quality is only maintained if people feel that ownership and they are empowered to make those changes. And you do that through focusing on developing a quality culture. How do you do that? You do a lot of team activities, you do a lot of soft skills development with the people, getting them also to start identifying, from taking a bottom-up approach, identifying what the priorities are for them within their colleges that they're going to look at making improvements in. So giving them some autonomy to undertake those processes and determine what they need to do.
Thank you. Yes, marhamat, O'tkir aka, marhamat, savolingiz bor.
Assalomu alaykum. O'tkir Alijonov, Oliy ta'lim, fan va innovatsiyalar vazirligi. Albatta, taqdimotda aytib o'tildi va hozir janob markaz aytdilar, ya'ni EKVETni joriy qilish uchun a'zo bo'lish, ya'ni klubga a'zo bo'lish, Yevropa Ittifoqi bilan hamkorlik qilish bu asosiy masala. Buni albatta amalga oshirishimiz kerak. O'ylaymanki, bu bo'yicha biz Yevropa Ittifoqi qo'llab-quvvatlaydi va ma'lumot tariqasida amalga oshirayotgan loyihalarimiz doirasida ham bu imkoniyatdan foydalanish mumkin. Misol uchun, Yevropa Ittifoqi tomonidan molashtirilayotgan Darya proyekti bor. Bu proyektni imkoniyatlaridan ham foydalanish mumkin. Endi savolim shundan iboratki, biz indikatorlar bilan tanishdik, indikatorlarni o'rganyapmiz. Aynan mana shu indikatorlarni O'zbekistonda, albatta biz O'zbekistonga moslagan holatda joriy etganimizda, mana shu indikatorlarga rioya etilishini monitoring qilish bo'yicha Yevropada qanday tajribalar bor? Qandaydir Yevropa Ittifoqi shu EKVETni joriy qilgan davlatlarda bir monitoringlar olib boriladimi yoki bu ham ichki monitoring bo'ladimi? Shuni bilmoqchi edim birinchisi. Ikkinchi savolim shundan iboratki, indikatorlarni joriy qilish, umuman EKVET tizimiga o'tishda bugungi kunda endi raqamli texnologiyalar kirib bo'lmagan soha qolmayapti. Aynan raqamli texnologiyalar yoki platformalardan foydalanilyaptimi? Agar foydalanayotgan bo'lsa, bu qanday platformalar? Biz ham mana shu platformalardan foydalanishni juda ham istagan bo'lardik. Shuni so'ramoqchi edim. Rahmat.
Rahmat. So, Belinda, did you receive the translations? Yeah? Okay.
The EKVET system is very open. It's basically methodologies and tools. It's not one system, so there's not one platform. Usually, each country has a data collection process. So they'll have their data entry, their knowledge systems that collects all of that data that they need. I mean, that's a big investment, and that's a reality that to do that and to do that well requires an investment in the knowledge management system. So your educational management system and those things need to be in place. Within countries, a lot of countries will have a national organization that does the research and monitoring of the systems overall. Some are more focused on doing that research and then providing that information back to their stakeholders, the training providers, and that's so that they are in fact facilitating a quality improvement process, as we saw in the number of the examples here in my presentation. Other countries, they do the analysis and then they just release the documents. So there's different levels of effectiveness there where that happens. However, at the same time, because this is a reform process, we can't just go straight to the European standards because it's very expensive and it's going to take time to do that. we need to make this an incremental process. So at the beginning, the best data that you can collect is from your stakeholders. So giving your colleges, because you're a ministry, making sure that your colleges have the same kind of data collection tools that they can customize to their own needs. So they're asking their stakeholders for data, looking at their data that they can collect through their existing reporting mechanisms, and that you can collect through the existing mechanisms as well. As there are, it can be done.
So, just off the topic, the UNESCO is also promoting the Convention on Recognition of Qualifications acquired through higher education. And for this platform, for this convention, UNESCO encourages member states to establish the National Information Center, in which these centers in the national level, they collect information about the higher educational provision, the quality of higher educational provision, and then the levels and everything related to the higher education. And they disseminate this information through the network, through the database to other countries, so that Uzbek diplomas of the member state who joined the convention could be recognized by another country. So it's like promotes the mobility, promotes the recognition, international cooperation in the higher education. So perhaps Mr. Alijonov asked the question similar to this, whether Equawet enables any kind of information. Anything, Jean-Marc, you can suggest?
I think the Equawet system is by definition a platform of exchange. So the issue is obviously the platform is there and the exchange is there. Now the way the platform is handled by the Equawet working group is something which we will have to explore.
Yana savollar, takliflar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, marhamat. Albatta bu mavzu oson emas, qiyin mavzu, lekin albatta ekspertlarimizga bergan taqdimotlari va bergan fikrlari uchun albatta minnatdorchilik bildiramiz. Va kun davomida yana bir marta taqdimotimiz bo'ladi. Hozir tarafdan so'ng va kasbiy ta'lim strategiyasi bo'yicha Jean-Marc taqdimoti bo'ladi, Kastijonni. Va bu yerda ham Jean-Marc Kastijon o'sha ta'lim sifatini ta'minlash, strategiyaning ichidagi ta'lim sifatini ta'minlashga alohida urg'u beradilar. Albatta kun davomida yana sizlarga savollar, takliflar, izohlar tug'iladigan bo'lsa, biz kutib qolamiz. Va agarda hozircha savollarimiz bo'lmaydigan bo'lsa, ekspertlarimizga o'zimizni minnatdorchiligimizni bildiramizda va ijozatlaringiz bilan qisqa tanaffusga chiqsak. Thank you very much, Belinda and Jean-Marc. We'll have a break now, and throughout the day, maybe we'll come back to this topic again. Thank you very much. Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari, marhamat qilib o'z o'rinlaringizni egallasangizlar. Keyingi sessiyamizni boshlasak. Yevropa Ittifoqi tomonidan moliyalashtirilayotgan qishloq hududlarda malakalarni rivojlantirish loyihasi YuNESKO tomonidan amalga oshirilayotgan loyiha doirasida O'zbekistonda professional ta'limni rivojlantirish bo'yicha milliy strategiyasi ishlab chiqilgan. Bu strategiyani haqida qisqacha ma'lumotlarni biz oldingi uchrashuvlarimizda ham bergan edik. Bugungi uchrashuvimizda ham shu strategiya bo'yicha qisqacha ma'lumot bermoqchi edik. Bundan sababki strategiyaning asosiy bo'g'ini bu professional ta'limda sifatni ta'minlash mexanizmlari va shu sifatni ta'minlash mexanizmlarini joriy etishga asosiy urg'uni qaratilgan. Shu munosabat bilan hozir biz shu strategiyani qisqacha taqdimotini qilmoqchimiz va shu uchun bizning xorijiy ekspertimiz Jean-Marc Kastijonni taklif qilganmiz. Marhamat qilib keyingi so'z navbatini Jean-Marc Kastrijonga bersakda va milliy strategiyada sifat ta'minoti qanday aks ettirganligi bo'yicha ma'lumotlarni eshitsak. Jean-Marc, floor is yours and you have 30 minutes for the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I will be standing in front of you if you don't mind. I will be presenting the draft TVET strategy. The reason why we speak of the strategy now is that if we are going to work on a quality assurance system, it is in the framework of a wider context, which is the whole strategy. The TVET strategy is not a strategy for one ministry. It's a strategy for the sector. The sector is skill development, TVET, formal, informal. Sorry, formal, informal. It's a system. So the strategy is for the draft strategy is for that, and we will have to validate the option that I will present now. Back to your next. There are 7 components in the strategy, which I will develop briefly one after the other. The first component, as I said before, the first component is about the coordination of TVET and skill development sector. Coordination. The whole issue of quality assurance is about coordination. Now the problem is what is the meaning of coordination. This what the quality assurance speaks about. The second component is a new approach of training providers. Second component, training providers. The third component is the diversification of training programs. Training programs can be diverse. The fourth component is a new profile for teachers and trainers. The work of training is changing a lot because of digital innovations. So a new profile for teachers and training. Fifth component, a new approach of qualifications. Qualifications. What do we mean by qualification? The sixth component is about employability of the students. Enhance employability using new pathways, career guidance, and entrepreneurship competences. But at the end of the day, employability is why a TVET sector is working on. This is the key issue. And the seventh component is the attractiveness of the system, making the TVET system more attractive for parity of esteem between TVET and general education. In many countries, TVET is regarded as below. In some countries, not everywhere, not in Germany, not in Switzerland, not in Finland, not at all. On the contrary, TVET is higher. So, but what we want, reach in Uzbekistan, is a parity of esteem. TVET is as good as higher education. Okay, let's see each of those components. The first one is effective cooperation, coordination among stakeholders, notably government, training providers, private sector, for policy and decision making. Coordination. Coordination means what? Means coordinating body, And inside this coordinating body, we need a qualification authority. We need a quality assurance authority. We need what is called now skill intelligence. Skill intelligence we spoke about before. Skill intelligence, anticipation of needs, but research. And the skill intelligence must exist at this level of the system. And of course, representation of the private sector, representation of the sector skill councils through an overarching body, which would represent the sector skill councils. So we need those 4 dimensions inside a coordinating body. Which shape it will have, this is to be decided by the authority in the country. But one rule is fragmentation is the enemy of quality. Fragmentation, a fragmented country, these people work in each, in their way, in their place. Fragmentation is the enemy of quality. There will not be a quality assurance system if there's fragmentation. So this first component is about forgetting fragmentation, about coordinating. In Germany, the first cornerstone of the quality assurance system in Germany, the first principle of consensus, agreeing. If we can't agree between us, it will be difficult to move on. That's the first component. The second component of the strategy, the second pillar, is about training providers. Create centers of vocational excellence. Some people don't like center of excellence. Pilot centers, I would do knowledge centers. Well, we can call them, but you see the idea. Colleges, technicums, schools which are really good to drive their development within a skill ecosystem. A knowledge center is the middle of an ecosystem with the private sector, with even the civil society and so on. Strengthen the relation between the TVET provider and the business community. Okay. International networking. Every provider which is inside the quality assurance system is naturally networking with international providers. Using, for instance, the YuNESKO. There is a YuNESKO system. YuNESKO system is a world network of all the providers which want to be part of it. But in Uzbekistan, we could usefully encourage the providers to network with the members of YuNESKO network. The YuNESKO network is all pilot schools, pilot colleges. Leadership. The concept of leadership in a school, in a training provider, has to be renewed. A leader of the college is not just a director. He's a leader. So a leader can do a lot of things. We have to work on the job of being the leader of a training provider, of a college, of a technical. As Belinda said, every provider will be quality assured. It will be under a quality improvement program, which will be part of the quality assurance system. Quality improvement program. You start somewhere and you improve. Quality assurance is about improving, not being perfect from one day to another. Focus on assessment. Assessment is the main job when you recognize a student as being able to do that, and be able to occupy a function. The job of assessment has to be given particular attention. And final, but last but not least, continuing education. There was a question before in the previous session about that. A college, a technicum, a center, a provider is not only about initial. It's not only about training for students. It has to be for adults. A training provider is providing for young and adult. So a center of excellence, a knowledge center, has to provide initial training, continuing training, continual training. And continuing training is a way to raise money. Because if you give training to company, for instance, you make money. And this you have money, you can improve quality. We're speaking of the next 10 years. We're not speaking of tomorrow. Next, back to please. Approach of training programs. Work-based learning. Yes, work-based learning is part of TVET. All TVET includes work-based learning. The curricula will be turned to a broadened learner understanding of a greener way of working. Green, Belinda mentioned before. Green, going green. We had from the EU this morning an alert on the lack of water. So going green is not one part of the program. It's part of the whole program. Make sure that when people learn TVET, in any TVET program, they learn to be green, to go green. Because if we don't do it day by day, every day, then we would miss water sooner than we should. Competence-based curricula, yes. Research on benefits of competency-based. Competency-based is learning outcome-based, is now on the table, but we need to research more on the benefits of learning of competency-based programs. I think there are discoveries that we have to do about this. The training program will allow permeability between formal and informal learning. The training programs will be modularized. Credit system in place. Or this is rather classical modules. As you will see later, a qualification will be more and more a big structure. A qualification is a block of competences, and each block has to be treated independently. And so the credential can be given to students block by block, if I may say. A new balance in a training program between technical and transversal skills. I will tell you one thing important. In a qualification, the technical side is less important. The technical side of the qualification is less important than the transversal side, than the soft skills. This is research. Technical side for an employer is less important than the way the people behave. So this needs to be reflected. So I need to accelerate. Teachers, trainers, apply new digital technologies. Yes, we know. Develop teaching skills for inclusion and psychosocial support and skills. A teacher will have in front of him people who sometimes are poor, and they need to be supported psychosocially. And the teacher needs special skills to deal with people who are, for instance, migrants. It's specific skills for this, you know. But build trust between the world of education and the work increased need for hybrid models of teachers. To simplify, hybrid model of teachers. In the future, there will be more, the teachers will be for technical education and for general education, both. I think it's a general move. Gain autonomy in selecting appropriate vocational pedagogies. The teachers will be able to choose themselves how to teach and what to teach in the future. Increase teachers and trainers' involvement in the development and implementation of education and training reform and curricular development. Making of curricula. Next component. Shaping qualifications. Meeting changes in TVET content. Shaping qualification means enabling accumulation, transfer, validation, and recognition of prior learning, including non-formal and informal learning. There is a world trend in what is called as the skill orientation of qualification. Qualification it's a big structure, but inside the qualification, there are skills to be gained. Develop a comprehensive qualification framework for improving permeability between secondary and higher education. It will be possible in the future if we have qualification framework of 8 level to go from secondary level in TVET to higher education. Bridging between secondary and the higher level. Broadening profiles with the overall number of qualifications. In the future, there will be less and less qualifications. Because the concept of qualification will be broadened. There will be a broad concept of qualification, but each qualification will include blocks which will be accessible one by one. Policy in lifelong learning, yes. Number 6, Bakjo, you refuse to change the employability. Employability through improved learning pathways. Employability, the main access to employability, so it's entrepreneurship competences. More if people can get entrepreneurship competence, they will be able to learn the way to access job. But the main way to gain employability is career guidance. Career guidance at system level and at school level. This is the main access to employability. If people are well advised, if they're well informed, they will get to employment easier. The last point is the building of NEAT. No, 6. No, there's the bottom, the next, the NEAT. NEAT, toolkit NEAT, it means not in employment, in education, in training. There are a category of people, not people, migrants, for instance, we don't know how to deal with them. So we have to prepare toolkits for people like that. Not in employment, not in training, not in education, because they didn't have any chance to access to a school. We have to give them a new chance to access training and education. Last, please. Attractiveness. As I said at the beginning, parity of esteem. We need to attract people in TVET, like in Germany, like in Switzerland. How to attract them? So incentive to increase participation of the private sector. The more the private sector will be involved, the more the TVET will be attractive. Involved, like in Germany, like dual system, and so on. Campaigning for parity of esteem. Collect data from students and graduates on itinerary. We have to show that people in Tibet succeed in life. So we need a database on successful cases. This will attract people. International networking, of course, and branding the qualification from give a brand to the qualification in the country. A brand means a stamp, which means quality. If you have the stamp, it means you have the quality, and the quality means you follow the regulation, you follow the quality assurance system. Only quality assured qualification should be branded. Voila. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Marc. Quite comprehensive document. Would you mind if we ask a couple of questions?
Yes. Only one question.
Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari, albatta bu kasbiy ta'lim strategiyasi hali ishlanyapti. Buni albatta to'ldiradigan qismlarimiz bor. Albatta bu ish davom etyapti. Albatta ayrim savollar tug'ilishi mumkin, lekin meni ijozatlaringiz bilan birinchi savol bersamda, Jean-Marc, my first question. So you described 7 pillars for the strategy. You said there is 7 pillars for the strategy, and so what would be the main pillar out of this strategy to adopt for Uzbekistan in order to make immediate change in terms of qualitative, in terms of equity, and in terms of expansion of the Tibet in Uzbekistan? What would be your recommendations for the one of the pillars to adopt?
Thank you. This allows me to complete my presentation. What I presented is a 10-page document. 10 pages document, which is not complete until we have an action plan. And this action plan, as soon as this is okay, validated by everyone, an action plan we will be working on. What is urgent is to work on an action plan. What is urgent, more urgent, is to work on the first component about which coordinating body will we have in the Tibet skill development sector. Coordinating body means regulator. We are not, we cannot, this is up to the Uzbek authority to decide, to agree. We need one qualification authority, one regulator of the system. It could be a committee, it could be an agency. This is not for us to say, it's for you. Experience show, in my experience, agencies go faster. An agency would go faster, but it is my experience, but I don't know. I only worked in about 30 countries, so, but there are more than that. If we do coordination, committees, it works. It takes longer. If we speak of speed.
So hopefully this action plan will be finished soon. Jean-Marc, wish you good luck. So another question would be, we said that quality assurance is a collective responsibility. So, and also you mentioned that this Tibet strategy cannot be implemented or owned by the only one entity. It's not only Ministry of Higher Education or the Tibet sector or education sector. It is a collective responsibility. Can you elaborate why you claim that the Tibet strategy should be a collective responsibility of the line ministries?
It's one sector. Tibet, it's one sector, and in one sector we have Ministry of and in the sector we have college, technicum, the monocenters. They are working. They're doing the same thing at different level, but we need to make sure that they're delivering the same service. The monocenters will be level 3, with technicum level 5, and to make to be sure that all of the actors are doing the same thing under the same rules. We have to work together. It cannot be one ministry here, the other ministry there. This is, I said it again, fragmentation is the enemy of quality. Coordination is the friend of quality.
Great, well said. And also I like the point you made that soft skills are more important than the hard skills. And then you said that it's a research based, so it's like to land the person in a good job is 85% is the soft skills and 15% is the hard skills actually. So that's why it's important in the strategy in the Tibet of Uzbekistan to focus on the soft skills as well, along with the hard skills. And I appreciate this idea. Okay, perhaps we can open the floor for the questions and suggestions, recommendations maybe.
Mumkinmi?
Marhamat. O'zi tanishtirib aytsangiz marhamat.
Assalomu alaykum. Shayx Nazar Sharafaddinov, Oliy ta'lim va innovatsiyalar vazirligidanman. Avvalambor janob Jammarka va YuNESKOga mazkur strategiyani ishlab chiqishda qilgan ishlari uchun minnatdorchilik bildirmoqchiman va taqdimotlardan kelib chiqib bir necha savollarim bor edi. Birinchi savolim, mana kvalifikatsiyalarni tan olinishi haqida gapirildi. Hozirgi vaqtda O'zbekistonda o'sha milliy malaka tizimini joriy etish jarayonida kvalifikatsiyalarni tan olishni, ya'ni noformal va informal va formal ta'lim natijalari bo'yicha tan olish mexanizmlari berilgan. Bandlik, kambag'alchilik qisqartirish va bandlik vazirligidan vakillar bo'lsa, bunga aniqlik kiritishadi. Qo'shimcha malakani baholash markazlari tashkil etilgan. Men birinchi bermoqchi bo'lgan savolim, kvalifikatsiyalarning tan olinishining keyingi bosqichi nimadan iborat bo'lishi mumkin? Hozirgi holat, tahlil qilgan holatda, ya'ni keyingi bosqichda biz nimaga harakat qilishimiz kerak? U qanday shaklda bo'lishi mumkin? Bu birinchi savolim. Ikkinchi savol, ta'lim va mehnat bozori integratsiyasi haqida aytdik. Bu sifatni kafolatlovchi va umuman ta'lim tizimining asosiy maqsadlaridan biri ekanligi haqida gaplashib o'tdik.
Uzr, bir minut tarjimaga kech kelibman.
Sekinroq gapir. O'qituvchi
Do you have a device? No. Ko'rsatib o'ring.
Boshqachadan
Ishlayapti. O'zbek tili qaysi? Gapiringchi. Orqaga gapiravering. Ingliz tilida. Orqaga. Ingliz tilida gapiravering. Eshitilmayapti. Siz. Nazar aka, uzr, qaytaraverasizmi savolni?
Albatta, muammosiz. Demak, kvalifikatsiyalar haqida. Mamlakatimizdagi kvalifikatsiyalarni tan olish bo'yicha amalga oshirilgan ishlardan menimcha jamar xabarlar bor. Bu bo'yicha chunki tadqiqot ishlari amalga oshirilgan. Savolim, kvalifikatsiyalarni tan olishning keyingi bosqichi nimada bo'ladi? Ya'ni u nimalarda aks etishi kerak va u qanday bo'lishi kerak degan savolim, birinchi savolim. Ikkinchisi, mehnat bozori bilan ta'lim xizmatlarining integratsiyasi masalasi haqida juda ham ko'p gapiramiz, lekin menimcha ta'limni barcha bosqichlarida shunday tendensiya borki, ta'lim har doim ishlab chiqarishdan mehnat bozori talablaridan orqada yuradi. Har doim. Aksariyat hollarda juda bo'lmaganda va ushbu holatni oldini olish uchun, ya'ni mehnat bozori talablariga, ish beruvchilarning talablariga mos real vaqt rejimida deylik, kadrlar tayyorlab berish uchun nimalarga e'tibor berish kerak va bu strategiyamizda qanday aks etish masalasi bor. Ikkinchi savolim. Va uchinchi savolim o'qituvchilar haqida aytildi. Demak, soft komponentlarning, soft o'sha ijtimoiylikka yo'naltirilgan kompetensiyalarning texnik kompetensiyalardan ustuvorligi haqida aytildi. Bu bevosita o'z-o'zidan pedagoglarimizda ham ushbu kompetensiyalarni shakllantirish uchun zarur bilimlarni, kompetensiyalarni shakllantirishga talab etadi. Ya'ni bular o'sha kasb standartlarida oxir-oqibat aks etishi kerak bo'ladi. Ya'ni o'qituvchining yangi profilida nimaga e'tibor berish kerak deb hisoblaydilar Jammar. Bu xalqaro tendensiyalargami, ya'ni dunyoda bo'layotgan tendensiyalargami yoki mamlakat ichki bozordagi ichki ehtiyojlargami, pedagoglar uchun talab etilayotgan ichki ehtiyojlardan kelib yangi pedagoglarning profili shakllantirish kerakmi? Nimaga ko'proq e'tibor berish kerak deb hisoblaydilar? Asosiy shu 3 ta savolim. Rahmat.
Kattakon rahmat. Bo'lmasam, mana shu 3 ta savolga javob bersakda. Jean-Marc, just quickly I rephrase in English for your understanding. In English. Jean-Marc, in English. So the first question was steps for the recognition of the qualifications. How much this is reflected into the strategy, the steps for the recognition, validation, and accreditation of the qualifications. The second question was education sector TVET provision is lagging behind from the demand of the labor market. How can we ensure that the education TVET provision stands in front line and dictates maybe responsive to the labor market's immediate needs? How can we transform TVET provision in such a way, whether it's reflected within the strategy or not? And the third question was, we mentioned about the soft component. We said that it's important to build the soft skills of the participant, for the learners. And how do we build the skills and competencies of teaching staff in terms of building their capacities for building the soft skills? So these are the 3 set of questions for you to reflect first.
What was the first one again?
The recognition, steps for the recognition.
Recognition. Yes. Recognition of prior learning. To understand the importance of this question, we need to understand that the qualification has nothing to do with training. The qualification, the competence can be gained at work. A person who work in a company all his life and learns and goes up, he will gain competences up to the level 8 of your framework. So we need all system and more system have ways to make sure that a person who wants to have his competence acquired, regardless where, there must be a system where they will have their competence recognized. An RPL, recognition of prior learning, recognition of validation of experience. So there must be centers, national centers, not private, which know well the quality issue, the national qualification framework, and they will be the one. It can be an assessment board, maybe it's an arrangement, and this board will ask the person to prepare a file which will summarize the experience, and the board will assess according to the file gathered by the person if the level is so this recognition of parent is gaining more and more importance everywhere. And in Uzbekistan, we need to move fast on this, but we can only move fast because there's confusion about this, you know. The confusion is, I can recognize, yes, you have a certain competence, you can do this. So it's just a diagnosis of competence. The diagnosis says you can do that, but recognition has another meaning. Recognition, this set of competence is in our system, in our framework, level 3, level 4, level 5. We need to give a value to the experience of the person. And again, this is a trend which is international, which exists in many countries, and I think we should work on Uzbekistan on this.
How education can go in front line of the labor market demand?
Yeah, well, this is a traditional question. Tibet is always behind in terms of matching but it's behind not only in Uzbekistan, even in Germany. It's behind. First, because the skills, the competence, the aptitudes which are required are changing fast. As I said to you before, the qualification will be, the notion of qualification will change. It will be broader, but also more. There will be blocks of skills, which will part of a broader qualification, which will be given as credential to. So the mismatch is because even the private sector, I can say because I've experienced, don't know. No, we don't know how things are moving. There's a lack of visibility, which is there. The answer is, of course, the closeness of relationship between the education system and the company. The sector skill can solve. In many countries, one way to make sure that the training provider and the private sector are together. In many countries, in some countries, let's not exaggerate, in some sector skill council are providing body. They do the skills analysis. They are the companies. They are the private. They do the analysis of the needs, and they gather providers to provide what they need in terms of. So this closeness of relation is important, and again, sector skill council should be one of the answers of that.
Okay. The last question, the competencies for teachers on the soft skills for the teachers. I know that the UNESCO is doing a lot on the competency standards for teachers, which the framework includes the certain indicators, what kind of soft skills that pedagogies teachers must have. So what would be your suggestion on soft skills for TVET teachers?
As I said, the job of teachers is changing because in the classrooms, the students, girls and boys, are changing also. They have, you know, they're all connected to their mobile all the time. So the teacher has to compete with the mobile. So the teacher must be digitalized, equipped. But if I give a personal opinion, in my opinion, the most important competence of a teacher is the capacity to assess, to say this student at this level, you know, to be able to see in students, you know, what they can do and what they can do now and what they can do in the future. What is the potential of students? They will. I'm afraid the trainers will have to compete with the data centers, with digitalization, but they have their role will remain important, even if it changes.
Okay. Thank you, Jean-Marc. I think there were a couple of hands. Orqada savol bor edi. Marhamat, o'zingizni tanishtirib savolingizni bersangiz.
Assalomu alaykum. Buka agrotexnologiyalar texnikumidan buxgalteriya iqtisod o'qituvchisiman. Familiyam Rahmanov, ismim Ibrohim. Xo'p, konferensiyadan biz tushunyapmiz, sifat bu natija. Yana bir narsa, ana strategiyamizda ikkita strategiyani birma-bir ko'rganimizda kvalifikatsiyalar va ish beruvchi bog'liqligi strategiyada qaysi bosqichda yetakchi o'rin egalligi. Chunki dual ta'lim bu bizda an'anaviy bor, milliligimizda ham bor, ustoz shogird an'anasi. Chunki bizning o'quvchilarimizning malakasi ish beruvchining talabiga oid bo'lishi kerak. Mana shundagina biz sifatga, natijaga erishgan bo'lamiz degan tushunchaga ega bo'lyapmiz.
Bu savol edimi yo taklif edimi?
Yo'q, savol bor. Qaysi strategiyada qaysi o'rinda yetakchi ish beruvchiniki? Talabi. Qaysi birda ish beruvchi bilan ko'proq bog'liq ishlaymiz? Chunki bizni chiqargan mahsulotimiz bu o'quvchi, ishlovchi bu. Ish beruvchining talabiga mos bo'lishi kerak.
Did you pick up the question?
Rahmat.
Yes. Maybe I didn't clarify this enough. The employers have a role to play at the system level as part of the regulation of the regulator. If there's a body which is a regulator, a coordinating body, regulator, the private sector will be represented in this body to give the point of view of the private sector. And the regulator and the private sector is also part of the work-based learning. Work-based learning is part of the time the students they spend in the company, in the private, in the enterprise, in the company. So the private sector will help to say what do they need in terms of skills, but they should be part of the training system. They should most of the time have the students in their premises to contribute to the qualification. The most important part, and what is often not well implemented in many countries, the student will spend time in the school, in the college. And will spend time in the company.
Okay.
The coordination between the two venues is not. I've seen in many cases, it's not obvious. It is, of course, the dual system in Germany is a good example. It's a good example, but it shows also the difficulty to articulate the time spent in school, the time spent in the company. There should be in the curricula clear specification of what is learned in the school and what is learned in the company. This is what I see. I see the role of the private sector. The private sector is half of the system. It's half of the system. Without the private sector, we don't have a Tibet system.
Thank you. So I think there was one more question. O'tkarga marhamat.
Rahmat. Birinchisi savol emas, fikrimni aytmoqchi edim. Umuman professional ta'limni rivojlantirish strategiyasi, ta'lim sifatini ta'minlash to'g'risida gapiryapmiz. Mani qarashim bo'yicha albatta bu muhim va mana shu ta'lim sifatini ta'minlash va professional ta'limni strategiyasini qabul qilish va amalga oshirish pirovardida bizni iqtisodiyotimizni yangi bosqichga rivojlantirishga xizmat qiladi deb o'ylayman. Agar janob Markasijon bunga fikrimga qo'shilsalar aytadilar. Chunki malakali mutaxassislar chiqadi, malakali mutaxassislar sifatli mahsulotlar ishlab chiqaradi va yangi ish o'rinlari yaratiladi va iqtisodiyotda ko'proq daromad olish imkoniyati yaratiladi. Endi savolim. Strategiya loyihasida O'zbekiston uchun ustuvor bo'lgan ayrim yo'nalishlar ham aks ettirilganligi bo'yicha qisqacha aytib o'tsalar. Bulardan birinchisi green skills masalasi. Ya'ni yashil iqtisodiyot bo'yicha bizning alohida vazifalarimiz bor. Aynan strategiyada green skills bo'yicha alohida masalalar aks etyaptimi? Bu bir. Ikkinchisi dual ta'lim bo'yicha mana hozir Germaniya tajribasini gapirdilar. Albatta biz Shvetsariya va Germaniya va boshqa davlatlarning dual ta'lim tizimi bo'yicha tajribasini o'rganib, joriy qilish bo'yicha ishlayapmiz. Ya'ni qaysidir ma'noda dualizatsiya jarayoni ketyapti O'zbekistonda. Aynan strategiyada dual ta'lim va unda xususiy sektorni ishtirokiga oid masalalar ham aks etganmi? Uchinchi savolimiz bugungi taqdimotdan kelib chiqib, ya'ni kunning birinchi yarmidagi taqdimotda ichki ta'lim sifati to'g'risida gaplashyapmiz. Ya'ni ta'lim muassasasida ichki ta'lim sifatini ta'minlash bo'yicha vazifalar, tavsiyalar bo'ldi. Strategiyada aynan professional ta'limda ichki ta'lim sifatini ta'minlashga qaratilgan yana qanaqa qo'shimcha masalalarni kiritish lozim deb hisoblaydilar. Ya'ni janob Kasijonning tajribalaridan kelib chiqib shuni bilgimiz kelyapti. Rahmat.
Pick up the questions.
No, I can.
Yes.
I think it was a comment, a question or a comment. On this issue of the green. That's a comment on the green skills. The green skills. I mean, it's part of our curricula. It's I can't say much more about it. The question: how we're going to use curricula to impart green skills? It's a question which is still under research, but we will have to find a way to make sure that people who come out of the classroom are green, have a green mind. See, regarding the internal quality assurance of the provider, I think Belinda would reply better than me. But I said in the presentation of the strategy that there was a quality improvement plan in each training provider. And this quality improvement plan is the tool which would make sure that all training providers are progressing towards quality. This is the main tool. If it's well implemented, this quality improvement plan is a tool which will be efficient. Which will be efficient. There was a point about your education is part of the strategy. We are saying that every training program will have to include work-based learning. Whether we can call it dual education, but dual education belongs to Germany. We can call it work-based learning. All training program should be partly work-based, at least partly, as much as possible. There was a question of the fact that if the strategy succeeds, we would help economy. TVET is about, and if you follow Equavet indicators, I think the first indicator of Equavet is the improvement of the employability rate, isn't it? Well, Belinda, one of the indicator of Equavet is the fact that the less unemployed people. This is one of the indicators of Equavet. So yes, the strategy should help towards less unemployed. This is the concrete result expected.
What is the time frame for the strategy for Uzbekistan?
10 years.
10 years.
2030.
Thank you.
No, it's not 29 or 30, I think.
30.
It will take time. But if we have a good action, if we have a good action plan, it will work.
Yeah. Colleagues, we are approaching towards the end of our session again, but still we have a couple of questions, but we can take a couple of questions. We'll start with Aslijan aka, and then Atabay aka, you are the next, and then Obijon aka siz keyingisi. Orqada yana bitta savol bor ekan, bo'lmasam yana bitta 4 ta savolni olamiz. Shu bilan bizning sessiyamizga sizda ham bo'ling. Mayli, marhamat. Aslijan aka, marhamat.
Rahmat. Albatta strategiyani amalga oshirishda muhim narsa bu pul, investitsiya, moliyalashtirish hisoblanadi. Aynan demak bu strategiyada moliyalashtirishga qanday yondashilyapti? Aynan professional ta'lim tizimini moliyalashtirish. Moliyalashtirish oldingi tizim, hozirgi tizim qoladimi yoki unda o'zgarish kutilyaptimi? Nima taklif qilinyapti? Ikkinchi masala moliyalashtirish bilan bog'liq. Bu strategiyani amalga oshirishda xarajatlar hisob-kitob qilib chiqilganmi? 10 yillik deyilyapti. Demak, qancha mablag' kutilyapti bunda va bu byudjet va byudjetdan tashqari mablag'lar kesimida taqsimoti hisob-kitob qilinganmi taxminiy bo'lsa ham? Va uchinchi narsa, hozir deyarli hamma xususiy sektor ishtiroki, uni muhimligi albatta bu aksioma sifatida e'tirof etishyapti. Va strategiyada aynan shu xususiy sektorda muhimligini qanday qilib biz balkim alohida bir ustun sifatida, pillar sifatida belgilash muhimdirmi deyapman. Chunki aynan buni muhimligini ko'rsatish bu boshqa ijtimoiy sheriklarga, manfaatdor tomonlarga ham to'g'ri signal berilishini ta'minlar edi. Rahmat.
Rahmat. Mayli, keyingi savollarni olamiz. Atabay aka, marhamat.
Assalomu alaykum. Suv xo'jaligi vazirligidan ishxona Atabay berdingiz. Xo'p, mana savolim shundan iboratki, mana shu professional ta'lim tizimini rivojlantirish strategiyasida xo'p, imkoniyati cheklangan fuqarolarni va xotin-qizlarni o'sha kasb-hunarga o'qitish bo'yicha, o'sha gender tengligi bo'yicha qamrab olish bo'yicha strategiyada qanaqadir nimalar bormi, qamrovlar bormi? Imkoniyat cheklangan va xotin-qizlarni masalasi, gender masalasi bo'yicha.
Savol yana bittasi Obid aka sizda edi.
Assalomu alaykum. Oliy ta'lim fan va innovatsiyalar vazirligidan Sarman Qo'ydirishman. Meni savolim, bizni bu strategiyada milliy malaka tizimini bugungi kunda huquqiy asosi bor. Buni amaliy asoslarini yaratish bo'yicha ham aniq bir vazifalar belgilanyaptimi? Ya'ni milliy malaka ramkasi tasdiqlangan, tarmoq ramkalar tasdiqlangan, kasbiy standartlar bor, lekin kasbiy standart bugungi kunda bu asosan ta'lim dasturini ishlab chiqishda foydalanyapti. Qolgan jarayonda yo'qda. Ya'ni baholash, sertifikatlash jarayonlarida buni o'rni ko'rinmayapti. Ish berish dunyosida bundan bexabar holatlar ham ko'p. Shuning uchun bu amaliy asoslarni yaratish uchun nima ishlar amalga oshirish kerakligi ham berilyaptimi? Ikkinchi savolim bu mana shu milliy malaka tizimini tashkil etuvchi komponentlar, milliy ramkani nazorat qiluvchi kengash, tarmoq kengashlari, kasbiy standartlar ishlab chiqish jarayonlari ko'pchilik jamoatchilik asosida bajarilyapti. Ya'ni buni aynan yuritadigan bir organ yo'qda. Shuning uchun bu narsa ta'limga to'liq kirib ketishini ta'minlab bermayapti. Biz British Council'da seminarlarda ishtirok etganimizda Angliyada bu sektor skillslar nazorat qiluvchi organlar ta'limga chuqur kirib borgan. Tashqi baholash, ichki baholash ko'rinishda bu narsalar o'z aksini topganda, bizda esa bu narsalarda roli yo'q. Chunki bu jamoatchilik kengashi, tarmoq kengashi nazorat qiladigan organ bor. Har xil vazirliklarda, har xil ish beruvchilardan keladi, bir marta yig'ilish bo'lsa, keldi, bo'ldi, shu bilan yana tarqalib masala qolib ketadi. Buni nazorat qiluvchi bir organlar bo'lish masalasi bo'yicha Kastajonda ham fikrlari bo'ladigan bo'lsa, yiqlardik. Keyingi masala mana ekovet tizimi, bu balkim Bilinda xonimga tegishli bo'lishi mumkin. Ekovet tizimini ham to'liq bizda tizimda joriy qilish masalasida milliy malaka tizimi ham biz O'zbekiston to'liq ishlash kerak-da. Chunki milliy malaka tizimida ish o'rniga qo'yiladigan talablar belgilanyapti. Undan keyin biz ta'limga qo'yiladigan talablar ishlab chiqishimiz, bu indikatorlarni olish va bizni bitiruvchilarimiz baholash masalalari bo'yicha sifatli ta'minlashda ekovet tizimiga menimcha uyg'unlik jihatlari bo'lishi kerak deb o'ylayman. Keyingi savolim, mana professional ta'lim tizimida biz kadr tayyorlaymiz. Biz mehnat bozori deganda ichki va tashqi mehnat bozorini nazorat qilyapmiz. Biz berayotgan malakalarni, biz berayotgan diplomlarni chet elda mana Yevropa bilan biz kadr tayyorlash masalalari qo'ydik. Tan olish masalalarida nima ishlar amalga oshirish kerak? Bu ishni asosan kim amalga oshiradi? Oliy ta'lim vazirligimi yoki boshqa bir organ bu narsani amalga oshiradimi? Shu masalada iyi bo'lsa. Keyingi yana bitta masala shu jarayon tashkil qilishda biz mana Yevropaga kadr tayyorlash jarayonida biz ta'lim dasturlarini kompetensiyaga yo'naltirilgan holatda tayyorlash yoki bo'lmasa tizimni ta'limni xalqaro standart tasniflagicha integratsiya qilish masalalar qilindi. Yana biz tomonidan qanday ishlar amalga oshirilishi kerak? Shunda biz bergan diplomlar chet elda yoki biz bergan malakalar chet elda tan olinadi.
Rahmat. Hozircha mana shu savollarga bo'lmasam javob topaylik. Kassajon, there were so the first set of questions about funding and whether this strategy will offer different forms of funding mechanism for the TVET provision, whether the strategy was costed, the implementation of the strategy was costed or not, and the private sector, we said the private sector, if it's half of the TVET provision, the private sector, can this strategy include as a separate pillar the private sector as well? So these are the few questions. If you could quickly reflect, I will then reflect on this next questions. Yeah, disabilities and gender issues in the strategies. Yeah.
What was the first one? Funding. I tend to forget the funding. Now, the funding at this stage on the strategy is on what we're going to do. If we are not been working on the funding we will address it. We try to address it on the action plan where we know who does what and what are the objectives. This is the objectives we give the funding. I've said that the colleges, the training providers will have continuing education. Continuing education, it means education provided to adults, individual adults, or to private companies for not for free. The training provider can sell the service to adults to get to raise income. I think it should be done. This is the future. They cannot just work for free. They work for free for the students because it's a job. But for the adults, I think they should raise incomes in this way.
Does the strategy cost?
No, the strategy was not costed.
Strategy not
Yes,
costed.
not yet.
And
At the end of
private sector.
no. Yes, the private sector is as I say, it's a half of the role is in the private sector because they provide the skill, they provide the knowledge and the demand of skills, and the source should also contribute to the training. But the private sector and the training providers have to work together, not separately. Again, there will be a regulator, there will be a governing body, a coordinating body where all the issues will be discussed, a regulating body. And then at the provider level, the training providers would take part of the duty to train. But we cannot have a separate pillar for the private sector. Otherwise, we create a fragmentation. We need to work together. Gender issue, yes. And remember when I said about the qualifications? I said in the qualifications, the technical part is less important than the transversal part. This gives more opportunities for women, for disadvantaged, to follow a qualification which we would think is technical. Qualification is less technical than it appears. In the future, we will give importance to transversal skill, and therefore women will be more interested and more involved.
Many countries are controlled, supervised, and regulated, but Uzbekistan should not be regulated and
Yes, yes. Again, regulator. We need a regulator anyway, public or private. It could be. It has to be private and public, both. And if it's a separate entity, it's all. As I said before, it's a question of urgency. If it's urgent, we need a separate entity. If we think that there's no urgency in creating a regulator, the quality assurance system, because otherwise it's not. But a qualification, a quality assurance system can be a quality assurance system without a qualification system, without qualification framework. So no, the quality assurance doesn't depend on the quality assurance system in Germany, which is the best in the world. There was no qualification. It's not related to the qualification framework. It is just a traditional system of quality assurance, which is in the law, but it's not related to the qualifications. And when the qualification framework came, it was a bit uneasy for the German to adjust to the qualification framework. But the quality assurance in Germany, in Switzerland, in Austria, is perfect. It can depend.
Also, our last question was, in order to get the diplomas recognized not only in Uzbekistan but outside of Uzbekistan, what action should be taken? And during the discussion, we said that one of the enabling strategies would be the establishing the solid quality assurance system. But your vision on this, and what kind of government entity should control or monitor this process, should be responsible for ensuring the diplomas, the qualifications in Uzbekistan are recognized globally? Yeah.
The qualification system is controlled by a regulator, by the future regulator. The control, the rules, the standards come from a regulator. So from this point of view, there's no question.
Thank you. So it means that we have to have a regulator,
yes,
who would enable this environment of quality assurance, operationalization of NQF, quality of skills development and recognition principles, yeah. Internal, external quality assurance. Thank you. Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari, bizda juda ham oz vaqtimiz qolyapti. Tadbirimiz yakuni bo'yicha agarda yana muhim savollar yoki takliflar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, mayli kutib qolamiz 1-2 minutga. Agar takliflar bo'lmasa, marhamat domla, o'zi tanishtirib.
Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli hamkasblar, studiya va bevosita ishtirok etayotganlar. Baxtiyor Rahmatovman, pedagog innovatsiyalar.
Hozir bir domla. Changiz bor. Marhamat.
Baxtiyor Rahmatovman, pedagog innovatsiyalar institutidan shu loyihaning bevosita ishtirokchilaridan biriman. Biz demak kompetensiyaga asoslangan ta'lim dasturlari ustida ishlayapmiz ishchi guruh tarafdan. Bir ikkita taklif va aniqliklar kiritmoqchi edim. Birinchidan, biz professional ta'lim tizimining negizida hayot davomida ta'lim olish prinsipi yotadi. Bunda yosh chegaralanmagan, aniqlik kiritishimiz kerak. Ikkinchidan, YuNESKO 2011 ga mo'ljallangan, demak, milliy malaka ramkalari va 29 ta iqtisodiyot sohalari bo'yicha tarmoq malaka ramkalari, ular negizida kasb standartlari ishlab chiqildi. Kasb standartlariga qisman, demak, o'qitish natijalari, to есть baholash indikatorlari kiritilgan. Shundan kelib chiqib biz bulturdan boshladik. Demak, kompetensiya asoslangan ta'lim dasturlari ishlab chiqishdi va amaliyotga kiritildi. Endi savolim shunaqa ediki, bunga obijana manchiq tushunchalar berib ketdilar. Shu mavjud amaliyot, uning huquqiy asosi to'g'risida to'xtalishdan zarurati yo'q, chunki yaratilgan. Shu mavjud amaliyot ekovet tizimida va strategiyada qay darajada inobatga olinadi? Endi bizning savollarimiz aksar holatda kuzatib turibsiz, Belinda xonim va Jean-Markni ma'ruzasidan kelib chiqyapti, to'ldiryapti, qaysidir joyda bir-birini nima qilyapti, chunki ta'limni alohida uzib, yulib o'rganib bo'lmaganligi uchun. Mana savolga agar malol kelmasa, javob bersalar. Mavjud, demak, nima bo'yicha? Mukammallashtirishga harakat qilaman. Mavjud tarmoq ta'lim, tarmoq malaka ramkalari, ular asosida ishlab chiqilgan kasb standartlari va ular asosida kasb standartlarida kelib chiqqan ta'lim dasturlari, o'quv reja, malaka talab va hokazolar qay darajada strategiyada inobatga olingan? Rahmat javob uchun oldindan.
Yes.
Before you move to the questions, let's pick up another. Marhamat.
Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli konferensiya ishtirokchilari. Men Ilgar Elyon, Oliy ta'lim fan va innovatsiyalar vazirligidanman. Mani savolim quyidagicha: professional ta'lim tizimida ichki va tashqi baholash muhim sanaladi. Shuning uchun Yevropa tajribasida ichki va tashqi baholashni uyg'unlashtirishda qanday indikatorlar mavjud va bu borada nima ishlar amalga oshirilmoqda? Shu bo'yicha ma'lumot bersam.
The question related to the standard, to which level it is taken into account. What is being done in the institute of pedagogical institute is developing curricula. It's a quality assurance loop leading from the functional analysis, occupational standard, curricula, training programs. This is in the component 4 of the strategy. This is the quality assurance, the way the training programs are developed, so following this quality loop from functional analysis to training program. This is part of the strategy. The pedagogical institute is obviously a very will be a very important element of the quality assurance system in Uzbekistan, I think.
Assessment. How much it's like internal, external assessment?
I don't understand the question.
Savolingizni yana bir marta qaytarsangiz, ichki va tashqi baholash ekovetda qanday?
Professional ta'lim tizimida ichki va tashqi baholashni uyg'unlashtirish uchun qanaqa ishlar amalga oshirilishi lozim? Bu Yevropa tajribasi misolida. Ular nima ishlar qilinyapti bu borada? Ularda.
No translation. So the question is about in order to integrate, harmonize the internal and external assessment in the skills provision, what kind of steps shall be taken, and if you could describe it with the example of Equavet.
For Equavet, you need Belinda, because she's a quality assurance expert. She would be she could answer better than me. But Equavet is not a set of regulation. It's not a set of EcoVet is a set of 10 indicators. And so the European countries are comparing each other according to the indicators which are common to all the European countries. He doesn't say how each country should arrange itself. EcoVet doesn't say I should do. We have a quality assurance system. We're comparing the outcome using the indicators that EcoVet proposed. EcoVet proposed just a set of indicators to measure the improvement made.
Thank you very much, Jean-Marc. Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari, sizlarning faol ishtiroklaringiz uchun kattakon rahmat. Ijozatlaringiz bilan bugungi suhbatimizni mana shu yerda to'xtatsakda, Jean-Marc va Belinda xonimlarga o'zimizni tabrikimizni, minnatdorchiligimizni bildirsak. Jean-Marc, sizga ham kattakon rahmat bergan fikrlaringiz uchun. Albatta bu strategiyani tez kunlarda yakunlab, vazirlikka topshirishni, hukumatga topshirishni va amaliyotga joriy qilishni tarafdorimiz va bu bo'yicha sizga muvaffaqiyatlar tilaymiz. Ishlaringizga omad. Rahmat. Thank you. Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari, endi oxirgi qadamimizga keldik. Albatta biz tushlik tashkil qilganmiz. Hech kimni hali hech qayerga qo'yvermaymiz. Bir piyola choy ichmaganlaricha ruxsat yo'q. Lekin bir piyola choy oldidan ushbu tadbirimizni yakuniy so'zlari uchun men o'zimni ham kasbim Qudratxon aka, marhamat, sizni chaqirsak va Oliy ta'lim vazirligi nomidan tadbirimizni yakuniy so'zlari uchun Sadoqat aka ijozat bilan sizni ham taklif qilsak va YuNESKO tomonidan nomidan yakuniy so'zlar uchun Marika xonim sizni ham taklif qilsak. Marhamat. Qudratxon, bugungi yig'ilishimiz bo'yicha aytilgan fikrlarni bir xulosasi sifatida bir 5 minut bizga bir ma'lumot bersangiz. Marhamat. Keling.
Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari. Avvalambor mana shu tadbirda taqdimotchilarga alohida tashakkur bildiraman va moderatorimizga alohida tashakkur mana shunday qizg'in davra suhbatini amalga oshirganliklari uchun va savollar berib mana shu yig'ilishimizni juda qizg'in darajada ushlab turgan shu ishtirokchilar uchun ham ijozatinglar bilan demak bugungi ko'rib chiqilgan masalalarimizni qisqacha xulosasiga to'xtalib o'taman. Demak, avvalambor biz professional ta'limda qanday muammolar borligi haqida birinchi taqdimotchilarimizdan eshitdik. Alohida ayniqsa Sadoqat Gafarovnaga alohida tashakkur. Ular mamlakatimizda professional ta'limda nima ishlar qilinayotganligi haqida va biz professional ta'limda nimalarga erishishimiz kerak, masalan aytadigan bo'lsak, keyingi 10 yillik strategiyaga muhtojlik borligi va har bitta vazirlikni vazifalarini aniqlashligimiz kerakligi, yangi kasbiy ta'lim tizimini ishlab chiqishimiz muhimligi haqida to'xtalib o'tdilar va undan tashqari Vim Riempa janoblari hamda Sara Noshadiy xonim ham hozirgi kunda bajarilayotgan ishlar va qaysi tashkilotlar nima ishlar bilan mashg'ul bo'layotganligi haqida va muammolar haqida qisqacha to'xtalib o'tishdi. Misol keltirib o'tishimiz mumkin. Vim Riempa o'zlarini hayotlaridan misol qilib keltirdilar. Ya'ni 1994-yilda aynan mana shu professional ta'limdan boshlaganliklarini va professional ta'limni kim uchun tayyorlayapmiz, ularni iste'molchilari kim va ular nima talab qo'yiladi, mana shu masalalarga alohida e'tibor berishimiz kerakligi haqida to'xtalib o'tdilar. Va bundan keyin yana bitta muhim taqdimot bo'ldi. Aynan O'zbekistonning qishloq hududlarida ish bilan ta'minlash, nikmalarni rivojlantirish loyihasi haqida bu Marika xonim alohida to'xtalib o'tdilar. Ya'ni loyiha doirasida biz nimalarni maqsad qilganmiz va qaysi vazifalarni amalga oshirdik, maqsadga erishish uchun yana nima vazifalar oldida turganligini ko'rib o'tdik. Bu taqdimotlar bizga aynan mana shu professional ta'lim yo'nalishida amalga oshirishimiz kerak bo'lgan vazifalarni aniq belgilab berdi deb o'ylayman. Va keyingi taqdimotlarimizda ushbu masalalarni qanday qilib yechishimiz kerakligini ko'rib o'tdik. Bunda bizga Belinda xonim sifat ta'minlashi bo'yicha hamda Jean-Mark janoblari aynan professional ta'limda strategiyani tayyorlanayotgan strategiya haqida ma'lumot berib o'tdilar. Agar yana ham yaqinroq to'xtaydigan bo'lsak, Belinda xonim bizga Yevropa da ya'ni ekovat tizimi professional ta'limda Yevropa sifat ta'minlash tizimi haqida gapirib o'tdilar va bu faqatgina platforma emas, balki bironta hujjat emas, balki juda ham katta tizim ekanligi haqida tushuncha berdilar va bu tizimni bizning holatimizda qanday qilib qo'llashimiz mumkin va qo'llashimiz uchun nima masalalarni hal qilishimiz kerak va qaysi masalalar juda ham tez yechilishi kerakligi haqida to'xtalib o'tdilar va orada aniq savollar bo'ldi. Ya'ni O'zbekiston hozirgi kunda professional ta'lim tizimini ekovetni qanday qilib qo'llash kerak va nimalardan boshlash kerakligi haqida bunga aniq javob oldik. Ya'ni birinchi navbatda ETF, ya'ni Yevropani trening fondiga murojaat qilishimiz, ya'ni ular to'g'ridan to'g'ri vazifalardan biri hisoblanganligi va aynan hozirgi kunda Daryo degan loyiha ketayotgani va buni doirasida biz ancha natijalarga erishishimiz mumkinligi haqida to'xtalib o'tildi va hamda ekovat tizimiga o'tish faqatgina bu hozirgi kunda O'zbekiston birinchi tajribasi emas, balki butun dunyoda bir qancha davlatlar bu qadamlarni amalga oshirishgan va bu qadamlar aniq va bir chekkadan amalga oshirishimiz mumkin. Birdaniga uni tatbiq qilish imkoniyati yo'qligi ekanligini biz tushundik. Va undan keyingi aniq savol bo'ldiki, bu tizimni amalga oshirishda O'zbekistonda qaysi vazirliklar yoki qaysi tashkilotlar roli va o'rni qanday bo'lishi kerakligi haqida aniq aytib o'tildiki, barcha tegishli vazirliklar bir xilda javobgar. Ya'ni professional ta'limni rivojlantirish faqatgina Oliy ta'lim vazirligi emas, balki boshqa barcha qaysidir qismi moliyaviy qismi yoki boshqa qismlar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, tegishli vazirliklar aniq vazifalarga ega bo'lishi kerak va buni qanday amalga oshirish kerakligi haqida strategiyada aniq ko'rsatib o'tilgan dedilar. Ya'ni Jean-Mark bizga 7 tamoyil yoki 7 asosiy yo'nalishini deydigan bo'lsak, alohida ko'rsatib o'tdilar va ularning birinchisi biz ko'rdikki, professional ta'limni boshqaruvi qanday amalga oshirish va bu boshqaruvni amalga oshirishda aynan bitta biz regulyator deb nomlandi. Hozir aniq tarjimasini bilmadim. Regulyator deb qabul qiladigan bo'lsak, uni belgilab olishimiz kerak va bu regulyatorimiz qaysi tashkilot nima vazifani bajarish kerak va qaysi muddatda bajarish kerakligini ta'minlab turishini aytib o'tdilar. Va albatta qolgan 6 ta tamoyil ham o'z o'rniga ega. Bu yerda biz o'qituvchilarning malakasini oshirish, ta'lim oluvchilar, ta'lim beruvchilar, ish beruvchilar, xususiy sektorni jalb qilish masalalarini ko'rib o'tdik. Demak, bu masalalar hali rivojlantirilishi muhimligi ochiq masala bo'lib turibdi. Va yana to'xtalib o'tishim kerak, muhim masalalardan bittasi bu yashillik, gender tenglik hamda yosh kattalarni mana shu kasb ta'limiga, ya'ni professional ta'limga jalb etish masalalari dolzarbligi biz savol javoblardan ko'rdik va bu masalalar albatta hammasi strategiyada va sifat ta'minlash ramkalarida inobatga olingan. Bular alohida tamoyil etib ko'rsatilmagan bo'lsa-da, balki har birining ichida demak mana shu asosiy ustuvor yo'nalishlar maqsad qilib olingan. Va undan keyin yana bitta muhim masala bizda tan olish masalasi ko'tarildi. Demak, tan olish masalasi ayrim mutaxassislarimiz aytishlari bo'yicha bu bizda yo'lga qo'yilgan. Ayrim savollarga murojaat qiladigan bo'lsak, hali ham ehtiyoj bor. Demak, tan olish masalasi treningdan o'tmagan, balki boshqa yo'llar bilan norasmiy, noan'anaviy usulda malakaga ega bo'lgan mutaxassislarni tan olish masalalarini ko'rib chiqishimiz bu ochiq masala ekanligini biz xulosa qilishimiz mumkin bo'ladi. E'tiboringlar uchun katta rahmat. Baxtiyor aka, agar qo'shimchalar bo'lsa qo'yasiz.
Kattakon rahmat. Menimcha bu umr davomida butun bir konferensiyani xulosasini qildingiz. Rahmat. Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari. Bugungi qisqa suhbatimiz shu bilan yakuniga yetyapti. Ijozatlaringiz bilan bugungi kunimizni yakuni bo'yicha so'zni Oliy ta'lim vazirligi, Oliy ta'lim fan va innovatsiya vazirligi vakili Sodiq Gafarovga bersak, marhamat.
Avvalambor mana shu konferensiya tashkilotchilariga juda ham katta minnatdorchiligimni bildirmoqchiman va barcha bizning xorijiy hamkorlarimizni ham sabr toqat bilan oxirigacha biz bilan birgalikda ishtirok etganlari uchun ularga ham minnatdorchilik bildiraman va konferensiya jarayonida men o'zimga shunday bir xulosa qildimki, hali juda ko'p qiladigan ishlarimiz, bajaradigan ishlarimiz juda ham ko'p, muhim vazifalar oldimizda turibdi va biz aynan bugun barcha mana shu ma'ruzachilarimizga taqdimotlar uchun Belinda xonimning mana shu biz kutayotgan barcha savollarga batafsil javob berganlari uchun, ya'ni Yevropa kasbiy ta'lim sifat standartlarini joriy etish uchun aynan nimadan boshlashimiz kerak va bu mana shu anjumanda barcha mana shu vazirlik, tashkilotlar vakillari bilan birgalikda mana shu taqdimotni amalga oshirilganligi uchun ham minnatdorchilik bildiramiz va mana biz uzoq tayyorgarlik ko'rayotgan va o'sha qabul qilinishi kutilayotgan strategiya masalasida janob Jean-Markning mana shunday batafsil bir hamma yo'nalishlarni o'z ichiga qamrab olgan taqdimotlari uchun ham bir katta minnatdorchiligimni bildiraman. Va mana shu albatta biz hozir kelishib olganimizdek anjuman bir yakuni bo'yicha, natijalari bo'yicha albatta biz tavsiyalarni ishlab chiqib, bu mana shu joyda qolib ketmasligi va buni keyingi o'zimizning faoliyatimizda, vazirlikdagi faoliyatimizda albatta joriy etish uchun biz uchun qimmatli maslahatlar bo'ladi deb kutib qolamiz va anjuman ishtirokchilariga ham faol ishtirok uchun va savollar bilan, takliflar bilan ishtirok etganlari uchun ham minnatdorchilik bildiraman. Rahmat.
Sodiq G'affarov, sizga ham kattakon rahmat. Mana shu uchrashuvlarimizda faol ishtirok etib, o'zizni tavsiyalaringiz va ko'rsatmalaringizni berib, bizni to'g'ri bir koordinatsiyaga olib kelib, hamkorlikda ishlashimizni ta'minlab berganingiz uchun ham sizga ham kattakon rahmat. Endi albatta bu tadbirimiz oldin aytib o'tilganday YuNESKOni shu mana shu Yevropa Ittifoqi tomonidan moliyalashtirayotgan loyihasi doirasida amalga oshirilyapti. Bu loyihaning ichida bir komponent sifatida ko'rilyapti. Birinchi komponent sifatida mana shu bo'yicha o'zi Marika xonim ertalab ma'ruza qilgan edilar. Hozir mana shu loyihani keyingi qadamlari va loyihadan nimalarni kutamiz yaqin kunlarda? Shu bo'yicha ham sizni bir yakuniy so'zlaringizni bilsakda, mana shu strategiyani, shu sifat ta'minlash ramkalarini loyiha doirasida qaysi etaplarda qanaqa topshirishligimiz bo'yicha bir yakuniy so'zlaringiz bo'yicha bir fikrlaringizni bersakda, keyin shu bilan tadbirimizni yakunlasak. Marhamat.
So thank you for all the participants, everyone. Thank you for your proactive discussion and participation into this meeting. And thank you, Madam Sidikova and Ministry of Higher Education to co-hosting this conference with us. As Bakhtiyor mentioned, in our project, especially for component 1, Jean-Marc Castejon would continue working on the TVET strategy and to develop the action plan for agriculture and irrigation sectors to implement these strategies up to 2030. So we would continue working with relevant stakeholders and develop the action plan together and aim to officially launch this project, TVET strategy within this year. For the quality assurance framework, we get the feedback from today, and with Miss Belinda Smith, we would again design the quality assurance framework and come back to you to get your further feedback and review, and we would also aim to develop the quality assurance framework. As we mentioned, this project would continue working for next 1.5 years at least, and we would continue ensuring the quality assurance in TVET sectors in this country. This is the work plan for our project. And again, thank you very much for your participation and discussion to this conference. We get the good feedback from all the participation, and we will continue working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariko. Hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari, YuNESKOning O'zbekistondagi vakolatxonasi nomidan bizning tabrikimizni ham va bizni rahmatimizni qabul qilasiz. Albatta sizni ishtiroklaringiz, sizni fikrlaringiz biz uchun juda muhim edi. Albatta sizni ishtirokisiz bu loyihani amalga oshirishda ham biz uchun juda qiyin bo'lardi. Shuning uchun UNESCO nomidan o'z minnatdorchiligimizni izhor qilamiz va sizlarning barchalaringizni bir piyola choyga taklif qilamiz. Marhamat, Madinaxon, Shahnozaxon, qayerga borishligimiz bo'yicha mehmonlarimizga kuzatib bersangizlar. Hammalaringizga kattakon rahmat. Kunlaringiz xayrli bo'lsin. Salomat bo'linglar.